So welcome back to Shoot Me Straight with Eddie and Dave. Today we got an awesome guest, Sean Murphy. We go way back, went to Buds together, 251.
Yep.
Went through Hell Week until, and then I got rolled into 252. But we linked up like a couple months ago, I think through.
Is it LinkedIn or Facebook?
It was one of those because I heard you on.
Or no, it's Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, because I heard you on Jocko's podcast, and I was like, dude, that's a blast from the past because I think after Buds, I hadn't seen you since the whole career.
Yeah. No, that's right, 20-plus years.
Yep. But I do got, like, fond memories just because we went through Hell Week together.
We were in the same boat crew, man.
Same boat crew, so.
You got some funny stories.
Yeah, and it was when we were on the phone. Like, a lot of it I can't remember, obviously. Like, Hell Week is a blur, but then when you talk to somebody you went through it with, they start coming back again. Yeah,
little bits and pieces.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad that you made the effort to come out here to be on the podcast. I know it was a long day of travel.
That's okay.
It happens, but we're making it happen regardless.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me out.
Yeah, buddy. Of course, man. Honored to have you here. But yeah, I definitely want to get into what you're doing now because I think that's super important. You're out there helping guys that are getting out and still serving the brotherhood, which is huge.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, I think that's on our heart. Whether we're in or when we get out, that's just who we are. So yeah, I definitely want to get into that, but I definitely want to get the audience to know you a little bit, where you're from, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, no problem. So my whole story is I grew up through adversity. I started in Oklahoma. I was born and raised in a little small town, Claremore, Oklahoma. If anybody knows anything about Walmart, that's where Helen Walton was born and where she's from. And grew up with 5 brothers, and we were always in a fight, either in the hospital or trying to play politics with each other to figure out who we're going to pick on today and who's going to avoid.
Your little brother
worked
with me.
Ryan or Chris?
He was a house mouse at first phase.
Oh, yeah, it was Ryan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he knows me real well. Yeah.
So believe it or not, he's probably one of the smarter brothers. We all have like God kind of gifted us with our own little characteristics, and he had a unique one. He was building satellites or antennas for the International Space Station for NASA. Yeah, so way above my my abilities, and he's doing great now. He's working. He's back in Claremore, Oklahoma, with a beautiful family, wife and 2 kids.
Oh, that's awesome! I always liked him a lot, man. Tell him, if you talk to him, tell him I said what's up.
Yeah, well, I talk to him all the time, and he's made some huge gains. He was one of the ones that we picked on the most growing up.
Yeah,
believe it or not. So he's got a little bit of fire in him, probably still from that. My littlest brother, I think, probably took a little bit. He made it through SWIC.
Okay.
So he went in SWIC and had another little brother that Michael. They're all not little anymore. They're just my brothers.
Yeah. But
I still think of them as little brothers. Mike, he's working at Tyson Foods in Arkansas. So we all kind of went through the Navy. I had an older brother that was going to go to the Navy, but didn't quite take the same path that we all did. But yeah, man, growing up through with 5 brothers, it was chaos. I think it drove both my parents crazy a little bit because they split. My dad went to Arkansas, so I spent my weekends and summers going back and forth to see him. And at that time, my parents didn't really get along. It was more my mom not liking my dad, and so I had to battle that growing up of how do I view my dad. I was just a little kid, like 9, 10 years old, and would go back and forth, 2-hour drive, and that's it was funny because we would always play games in it, and we're always annoying each other and fighting. So it was van fight 101 before I ever went into SEAL teams, because we do van fights in the SEAL teams. But so we were fighting. We'd have this little game on the clock that it was funny because my dad was in control, and he would ask us, like, what time are we going to get there to our destination? We'd start guessing times and throw it out there, and we'd compete to see who could, hit the close to the time. And my dad always had control because you can slow down or speed up, and it was kind of fun doing that and watching him, spend that effort to drive 2 hours one way, pick us up within 2 hours with all of us in the van back just to have a weekend. And so, after that, I didn't know what I was going to do, so I decided to go to college. And that was from a best friend of mine that he kind of took me in. Him and his parents took me in. My parents split. Mm-hmm. And I spent more time with them than I did my own family. And when it was time, high school was closing down. Real quick story. So talk about adversity. Something I haven't really talked about too much was, I had smoked weed in high school. I actually put that on my Navy recruiting application, whatever it's called now.
Some integrity right there. There
is. I got suckered in. They're like, have you ever done anything? I said, yeah, I smoked weed in high school. Well, my story in high school was I had tried it out, and I just gotten off probation, and I had a friend that came over and was like, let's try smoking weed since you got off probation. I was on probation for fighting.
That's what I was about to ask. Okay.
Yeah. And so
checks out.
Yeah. I was, a bruiser as a kid, and Hotbox came in, and the principal could smell it on us, and everybody was like, what is going on? Like, you guys smoked weed, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And they sent us to the principal's office, and I took the rap for it. I was like, hey, it's mine. I know I tried it. I was stupid. And so that was right around my 17th birthday, and so I was now in even more trouble. And I go home, and this is on my 17th birthday. My older brother was like, he's real bad into drugs. He's the one that it went off the deep end after my parents split up. Mm-hmm. And so he was he'd been awake for a few days or something. I think he was on cocaine or something bad. And I could see it. We fought a lot as kids, and I had just gotten home. I had my little Ford Ranger. I walked in the house, and he had this look in his eye, and he was just like, what are you looking at? And I was just like, I don't know. What am I looking at? Like, what's going on here? And he went to go fight me, and I was like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, hey, I don't want any problems. Why are you acting this way? And he was just all like out of his brain, and so I hit him and knocked him out. And I had to pick him back up because he was doing the snore. I was like, hey, what's wrong? Like, why are you trying to come at me? And he was like, well, now I'm going to kill you. And I was just like, okay. What's going on? I'd seen him before, and the look he had in his eye was he was serious. And so he ran back to his room and grabbed an SKS rifle and came out, and I ran. I said, okay, I'm done. So I sprinted back to my truck, and this is on my 17th birthday, and he's shooting at me off the property. So I left on my 17th birthday. Was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I can't go home now. Like, how my brothers are safe, and so all this is happening. And so I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, how do I find some sort of path and not be like getting into drugs? I seen what drugs did to my older brother, and I was like, I don't want any part in that. And so my best friend was going to go play football, and he said, you want to go play football with me in Missouri Western? So I said, yeah, sure. I'll give it a shot. I don't have a scholarship or anything, but I'll figure it out. And my dad said, yeah, we'll help you get into college if you really want to go. Took the test, went and visited the college, and actually got in. Surprisingly, this small kid from Oklahoma could actually go to college. None of my family members had gone.
Did you get pretty good grades in high school, or like decent?
No.
No
way, Eddie. I didn't have, so I was pretty, I think I had what most people have is nowadays is you have an attention deficit disorder, but not in the way that it was back then. It was you just were just so rambunctious and had so much energy.
Yes.
You couldn't sit still. You wanted to go and play and go and explore something. You couldn't sit there and focus.
You wanted to be a boy.
Yeah. You wanted to be a boy. Yeah. Well, my seat was usually right next to the teacher. Mm. And so that's kind of where I spent most of my years going through school and playing football. Like when I wasn't with family, like my new family was forming is like in team sports, whether it's track, baseball, football, something that was together with my brothers and doing something productive. And that was really what got me into like the whole team dynamic and atmosphere of this is where bonds are made and this is what's important to me. And so I went off to college and turned my grades around quite a bit. Well, I say that, but there's a couple of things that I struggled in, like math. Math was one that I was decent. I could understand it, but I just wouldn't apply myself.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to take the time to sit and focus. But I did all right. I went and did 2 years in college playing football and was still lost. Like I did internship and practicing with Kansas City Police Department because I thought I wanted to be a cop. Mm-hmm. And learned real quick that wasn't the path that was destined for me. And I joined Army ROTC, playing, because I grew up watching Rambo, Green Beret. That was awesome. I was like, I want to go be Rambo. I would crawl in the ditches and stuff. And so I got to do that in college. I got to have, woodland camis and go
play soldier.
Yeah. We did these things called Ranger challenges, and that was a lot of fun. That was really cool to do.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I learned a lot from some really good people that went off to be good leaders.
What's funny is like a little tangent, but I think most of us that go into the community that we went into all have ADHD in some form or fashion. And I'm just now realizing, because my wife she's hits, now that I'm out and I'm home all the time, she's like, I don't know how you functioned like while you were in, because I have it bad, if I'm not passionate or hyper focused, then I'm all over the place. Yeah. But I find that it's like a common it thing
is.
between
I
all
believe
of us.
it. You're probably right.
Yeah.
I think that if once we focus on things, it's not just, I think it's all like high performers.
Yeah.
Is once you find that passion of being able to apply yourself to, you're all in. You're going to stay focused, and you're going to have what I like to call it. When people say, oh, no, that person has it, or that person is going to be something, or you see something in somebody. I think that's what it is when they get attached to that drive and that focus on something,
they
can
over it.
Yeah, they can live it throughout their entire day. And so it's not like, oh, I'm just going to go in and put partial effort. It's like part of them throughout the day, all day long. They're thinking about it. They can still function, but they're really passionate about what they want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's something that most of us have.
Yeah. You need that excitement to light up your prefrontal cortex, like the front part of the brain for ADD guys.
Yeah.
Normal mundane stuff, it's like, doesn't really light up, right? But getting shot at or going and playing, then it's all right. Now I can focus. Now.
Well, I found it, because I explained to my wife, like, if I get a simple task, let's just say, oh, can you go refill all the toilet paper in the bathroom or whatever? I'm like, hey, all right. That is like such a brainless, menial task, but I will end up half-assing it, because halfway through doing it, I'm thinking about 20 other different things, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll literally come back, and my wife's like, you didn't even do like half the bathrooms, and I'm already working on something
Well, I had this idea.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah.
I think I'm a little bit different. So I discovered that I like to do certain tasks that clear my mind. And so if I can turn my mind to something and stay focused on it, it helps me clear my mind. If I get stressed or something, when I was single and living by myself in Virginia Beach, I would clean my entire house just to like be deep in thought, but not still.
Yeah.
So I had to be doing something. Kind of like what I think of a lot of people that, have some sort of anxiety would apply that to and really work through something by working through something.
Yeah. Nice. So you obviously did 2 years of college, the ROTC thing. And then from there, did you decide to go into the Navy?
No, that was an accident. So I actually was, once I got done I was going to go into the officer training school right after you do, I think it's your junior year, you go straight into where you do your officer boot camp.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go in the Army for some reason. I just felt like I want to go like probably Marines, because I thought of the image of a Marine at the time was, these tough guys that could do anything.
Yeah.
And they are. And so I walked down the Marine Corps office and the door was shut or was locked. Probably the only time they were closed. And I walked next door to the Navy, and there was two young kids in their E5s, and I kind of told them my story and what I wanted to do, and that was kind of the beginning of, oh, what are these things called? SEALs. I have no idea. I never read a book. It wasn't like it is today. Everybody's got some way. It's a household name now.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that because of all the books, the movies, the podcasts, everything that's out there. You know what a SEAL is. So you have enough resources at your disposal to find out.
Exactly. You can find it anywhere.
At that time, I had no idea. I thought they were growing in the government. Like, I thought of anything other than, I was like, well, what is? And they showed me the cool video, which after I did Jocko's podcast, somebody had sent me a video, the actual video, the old school recruiting of the dunk dunk dunk, the music, the guys coming out of the sub, like, if you want to be this, guys running down the beach.
Yep.
And I found it was actually really cool. But that actually inspired me to, like, I'll try it. recruiters first told me no, like you can't do it. Nobody can make it through. And I was like, okay,
that right there
check.
I think that right there sells people because I got told the same thing when and I had no clue what SEALs were either, except for I watched the Charlie Sheen movie, but I also watched Rambo. I grew up watching the same movies, and they had a poster in the recruiting office of the one, they're coming out of the water, and I was like, well, what's that? And I was like, I want to do that. And
curiosity got the best of you.
They were like, oh, you won't. Nobody makes that. And then that was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that's what I want to do.
You want to fight about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was all I really needed. But at that time, I had no idea what the standards were. I didn't know what I needed to prepare myself for. And actually, there in the Kansas City MEP station, there was a SEAL. And he came down to talk to me after I'd let me do this, and they could get me a SEAL enlistment contract, which means that I could go try out in boot camp for the special programs. Well,
you can go straight from boot camp to buds?
You still have to try out when you get to boot camp.
Yeah.
You have to pass a screening before you get into the program itself. At that time.
What year did you?
2000. Actually, I signed up in the year 2000, late 2000, and I did the delayed entry program for a few months.
Okay.
And I ended up in February of 2001 is when I took the bus ride.
Okay, yeah, because I joined in 99, and I know same thing, but I didn't. The recruiter's like, oh yeah, like you'll try out when you get there, and you'll go to buds. But the reality, when I found out after boot camp, is they were like, yeah, you're not going. And I passed the screener, and they're like, you have to have a contract, and I was like, what? And they're like, no, you're not going.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Welcome to the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. But luckily I had found this guy because I didn't know how to swim or anything. I was just, a kid that if you were competitive, you went out and tried and did your best, and that's what I did. But swimming without knowing how to swim it's a whole nother animal. I would sink. I was afraid of the water. I never did any swim lessons or anything, and so he kind of helped me out a little bit. And so I went to boot camp and passed the screener, got the contract, and got to go.
So you went right from boot camp. Did you go to A school?
Yeah, I did the longest A school you possibly could, which was Gunner's Mate A school.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually really cool. I still use some of the stuff today. It was learning hydraulics, electronics, all about, I was like a kid in a candy store. You learn, if you liked guns, you got to learn about every single gun from a pistol all the way up to the 5-inch cannons that they used on the ships. So it was like, this is awesome. You get to learn about firepower. And actually, when I went through school, they still had the M60 there. I think now they probably had the 48 or something.
Probably.
Much more advanced modern guns, but at that time it was cool taking apart an M60 and
the pig.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You get to hear about it as a kid, and I got to see it on Rambo, and then I go into school and get to play with it and take it apart, and then just having all the motivation in the world that I'm going to go to buds. And
did you do scruff duty?
No.
Like while you were in A school? Okay.
Oh no, we didn't have time for that. It was a long school. It was 6 months long.
Okay.
But I'm kind of glad that I didn't do that because it was nice to, kind of be on my own to figure out, get back into shape because boot camp actually got out of shape.
Yeah.
Because all you did is you eat and learn how to fold laundry in March.
Yeah.
So I was in real good shape in college, and I go to boot camp and started getting out of shape, and that kind of made me nervous. And I used that 6 months of A school to refine some swim skills and really train to focus on going to buds.
What was it like when you first entered buds?
I didn't know what I was getting myself into. You heard stories other guys that had either relatives or somebody that knew somebody in the SEAL teams, and so I just listened to them. And the first thing you heard was surf torture was what gets everybody. So we decided let's go surf torture ourselves. I came in at night, and so I saw the bridge, and I didn't really quite understand where it was, and went to check in, and just the smell. I still remember the smell. Same thing with Navy boot camp. I'll never shake that smell, that memory of the boot camp. I don't know if you remember it smelled like almost like mothballs or something.
Yeah, great mistakes. Yeah, Great Lakes.
Good grief, I'll never. But that's part of who I am. It was cool, but that initial impression was like, what am I doing here? I had never swam in the ocean, so the ocean was new to me.
Oh wow!
So I kind of was figuring out what is this thing, but we thought it was going to be cool to go and do some surf torture, and that was dumb.
Yeah,
there was plenty more where that came from.
Yeah, and you don't get used to it.
No,
or like it sucks every time. Yeah.
Even doing cold plunge is still like I do that to like stay hard.
Same.
Do discipline. Like I know, but it helps me like stay calibrated mentally. To like, all right, I can breathe through this, and helps me stay in some sort of balance. And I
feel like
it sucks.
I do the cold plunge every day too. I think that's for me it recalibrates me, but I also, it's like first thing in the morning I like to suffer. It's like I want to suffer a little bit to start my day.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of like gets me going. I'm like, all right,
man. So not to go off on much of a sidebar, but so I do team building for professional bull riders. There's a team that my buddy owns, and he has me do their team camp, and we put them through some cold plunges. And these are some of the hardest dudes on earth.
Oh yeah.
But watching them get in the cold tub, and they were just like, I felt their pain. They're just like, woo, 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 nope, nope, nope. I don't want to do this. And so I actually helped a couple of them like breathe through it, and because you see the value in after you do it of like learning to control that your mind really and your breathing to work through the pain. And eventually your body goes numb. But watching those dudes squirm, it was so funny.
Yeah,
and they're hard dudes. Like if you want to talk about, wild and crazy people, those are the dudes. But that's something that, even surf torch, you'll never get used to it. Cold plunge, you'll never be like, oh, I love this. I'm natural. I was like, well, maybe you can, but I think there's going to be a challenge that you're learning internal discipline.
Yeah.
When you do it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. It still sucks every time I do it.
That's the point.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Has it gotten for you? You've done it a lot longer than
I do, yeah, every morning. But it sucks, but at the same time, I'm addicted to it because I'm like, if I don't do this, then my whole day is like off. Like I have to. I start off with that, do a little bit of suffering, recalibrate, and then I usually go into my workout right afterwards and get that done. But it's actually, my plunge has been, it shit the bed about a week ago. I'm getting a part replaced to it, and it's been horrible not having it. I'm just like, dude.
Changing up the routine.
Come over and use mine.
Yeah. I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
If it was easy, then it wouldn't be something people talked
sure.
about.
That's right.
It's something that you got to, I think about that all the time. Like there's a reason why adversity has its advantages. Same thing with anything that you deal with. It has its advantages, and you got to look at what opportunity is present when you face those challenges. And that's really important when I think of going into like a cold plunge or something is, if it wasn't hard, then what's the point?
Yeah, for sure.
Why are you not challenging yourself?
It's the same as like if someone gifts me something, or like if you gave like a car, you're like, here, I'm going to give you this car. That car doesn't have very much meaning to me because I didn't work for it. It's not mine. But if I had worked for it and, busted my ass and saved up the money and bought it, then that to me, it's worth a lot more because I had to go through some type of adversity to get that car. And that's everything. To me, that's everything in life.
That was, you talked about my earlier childhood. That was my life. As I learned not to look at adversity as like holding me back, it actually gave me some insight on opportunity, on how to face it and overcome it and not let it define you. Learn from it, move on, have value from it, not wallow, be the victim. Which,
do you think that played a bigger role in you making it through Buds versus someone who is an Olympic swimmer who went to Buds but yet he didn't make it? Is that mindset?
I think it plays a part of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Because failure is funny, right? Because I learned this more when I taught assaults in the SEAL teams is through success and failure, you have a choice. You've got to find what's next. You can either sit and wallow in failure and not learn from it, or even in success, you can find success and be content with it. But if you don't find what's next on either one of those, you're going to be stagnant or you're going to regress back to where you came from. And so having some sort of failure in your life and learning that it's okay, you can get better and learn from this. In those moments in Buds, when you're faced with the most extreme challenges, which is what Buds does a fantastic job of doing, is beating you down and making you look deep inside yourself. Do you really want this? Is it worth it? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. You're going to find your limit in one way, shape, or form. And when you do, are you going to take another step? And that's what I think that going through adversity gives you that strength. It's the same thing when you do the cold tub and you learn to work through those challenges. If you've gotten more accustomed to that, you've built that muscle memory of that, you're going to do a lot better than somebody that hasn't. And it's not saying that people that have never faced adversity are not going to make it through. It's just saying that I think it has a part in, you get more discouraged because you don't know how to manage that or handle it. You may or may not. I just think that it does have some sort of play in it when you face adversity a little bit more than others.
You build up your resilience.
Yeah. You truly do.
Yeah. You have quite a Bud story, because I remember in 251 when I classed up, there's always a group that had already been to Buds, or like they had some gouge, the rollbacks, or like guys that had been there before. I remember Mark was one of them, Mark Lee. There's a couple other guys that I had talked to right when I got there. But yeah, I remember you were one that had been through, but you went through like Hell Week twice.
So I can't remember how many days I actually went through. So I went to Hell Week in 238 and compacted my spine, got rolled, went to Hell Week in 239, got injured again, got rolled into 240 right before I went to Hell Week. They found out that I had bilateral hip stress fractures, which was like really painful. I couldn't walk, and they were like, nope, you can't go anymore. And then I went to 250, went all the way to, I forgot which night it was. It's still fuzzy.
In 250?
250. And we all had VGE, and I couldn't hold down anything, and the docs.
Viral gastroencephalitis.
Something. It's just, VGE is just an awful, awful feeling because you can't hold any liquids in your body, and it's coming out every hole that you have in your body is leaking something. And but you don't really. The cool thing was in Hell Week, you didn't have time to stop and think about it, how awful you felt. And so that there was actually an admiral that was walking through, and I ate some Skittles and puked Skittles on him, and he was like, "Get that man to medical." And that's what kind of drew some attention to me. And then they kind of made me. They wanted me to hold some substance down, something that I could continue on the evolution, because it's they're
like, this dude's puking rainbows.
Yeah. Taste the rainbow. You surely did. But at the same time, Buds is very, very hyper, as you know, everything is calculated.
Yeah.
And so that they had to make sure that I was ready to go face these challenges. And I couldn't hold anything down, and they ended up saying, nope, sorry, Murph, but you got to go back and start over, it was heart-wrenching, man. Like, so
this is the fourth class?
3.
Yeah.
Holy smoke.
5th class. 251 was 5th class, yeah. And that's probably why I have a lot of painful days, is like Buds beats the crap out of you. It's not a pretty sight. I still look at pictures of guys going through now, and even our old pictures, I'm like, my goodness, like that was crazy. Like, how do guys do that? And it beats you down so much. And at that time, I'm still young and spry, but I had suffered some injuries before. I still had some pain, but it wasn't where you didn't think that it could stop you. And so at that point, it was heart-wrenching, because I was like, man, is this what I'm intended to do in life? And then I actually bounced back, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it my all. Like, what am I here for? I'm here to do this. Why am I going to stop? Even though it's 5th class in like 2 years. Yeah. Still didn't stop me from giving it another shot.
That's a really cool story, because I mean, you had multiple chances to go, well, I gave it a shot. I tried. You know.
You also had multiple chances to make excuses and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
And that says a lot. I mean,
there was only one time that I had that. My roommate, he's still in, so I won't say his name. Yeah, he was such an awesome dude. But we woke up like 4 a.m, and we were roommates all through Buds. And I remember the warm feeling of the bed, and the ocean was. You remember the sound? I don't even have to like describe it to you, but to anybody else who wants to know what the ocean sounds like, it's like the. You're welcome. But that sound, I heard it, and I could feel the cold going through all my bones. And I looked at the clock, and I was like, do I want to get up and do this? And I just had to take one step. That's all it took, was me just saying, you know what, I'm gonna take one step. Took one step, and before I knew it, I was like walking along. I was like, man, that was the dumbest thing I could have possibly done. That was the only time that I felt myself saying, like, do I want to do this? Like, can I do this? And I went through, and after that, it was like, never give in to that self-talk of like doubt. And I still, to this day, that's why I love, seeing what people are capable of, because I see more that people are capable of now after going through all that you don't need to just give in. If I would have given in, it's the same thing with, I think, in business too. It's like, if you give in, unless it's like the writing's on the wall, there's certain parts of it. If your leg's falling off, don't keep trying to run. But I mean, you can, but you probably shouldn't. And so if you give in at that very final moment of the self-talk, you're probably real close to having success. And so keep thinking about what that next step is. Keep taking that next step forward. And that's how I looked at it, was finding a way to take another step.
Yeah, I think, and I'd like to hear, interested to hear your thoughts, like for the guys that quit Buds, because it's a voluntary school. Like nobody's pulling you aside and be like, hey, you're dropped. Unless you fail one of the physical evolutions that have, standard times, right? But even then you get 2 or 3 chances to try and pass. But most of the quitters, I remember, and especially when I was a first phase instructor too, it's in the morning. Like you hear that bell going off at 4:45 in the morning, and it's due to the fact of exactly what you just said. You wake up every morning there, and it feels like you just got in a bar brawl the night before, and everything hurts. You're just like, dude, now here we go again. And it's that decision to be like, let's go and take that step. Like, I'm going to go attack this day just the same as I did yesterday, even though I'm in pain. But I think for some individuals, they talk themselves like, I can't do this. Like, there's no way I can do this again. And they end up ringing that bell when if they had just taken that step to,
it's like paralysis analysis. I just assume, because this is what I would think, that if I put too much stock into trying to rationalize it, because you have doubt, you're now pulling yourself away. I truly believe this, that your brain is like a magnet. You have a positive and a negative. And the more you put into like the negative, it's just going to pull it. It's going to have that much stronger of a pull towards that side of being negative. And so if you have a choice of being positive, take that step and be positive and just see where it gets you. It's probably going to draw you closer to being positive than sitting there trying to rationalize, oh, I can't, or I shouldn't, or whatever. It's like, well, what do you set out to do? Like, is this what you want to do? Figure it out. Like, don't look at the negative things. You're going to pull yourself back and down. And ultimately, I think rationalizing it's not a rational thing to do.
No.
You shouldn't get up and go do another fight. It's like, if you just got your butt kicked in a bar, don't run back in there and start the fight again. I mean, you can, but you're probably going to get beat up again and again and again and again. It's not rational. But at the same time, if you want to do something, I'm not suggesting go bar fighting, but at the same time, I think it's even not just with SEAL training, but it's every special forces or unique training block, they get their butts kicked over and over again. It's just that finding that ability to persevere and work through adversity and finding that next step that you need to take. Because that's what really I think probably when they get to that point of starting having some conversations with themselves, that they're going to find a way to talk themselves out of it.
Yeah, and to go back to what you had asked Dave, like the difference between who quits and who doesn't, as far as these Olympic swimmers, or because we had some, I remember some triathletes in our class, dudes that were studs, and they quit.
They're really good dudes.
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with them. They're studs. But what I also think with those guys, and I saw it when I was an instructor too, where we'd have some D athletes come through, or even we had some football players come through and they quit. It's because they're gifted already, and they've been, what do you call it? Primed to be, where they're at in life, and they've been told, hey, you are gifted, you're talented, but when you get to Buds, you're not getting told that, and not only that, Buds will find your weakness. You're not going to skate through there unscathed, and I think with those individuals, when they get told nope, you're not good enough, or this is your weakness, and they'll exploit it too. They have a hard time dealing with that because they've been told their whole life that you are gifted, you're talented, and so they are. That's not a lie, but it's like they don't have the mental fortitude to overcome that and be like, no, I'm gonna gut through this, and I saw it all the time. And those guys, you'll see these phenoms, these dudes who are studs, just go ring the bell, and you're like, holy cow! But then you'll have a 135-pound soaking wet dude who could, barely do 10 pull-ups. When he got to Buds, he's there at the end of the day. And I saw that as well. And that's the individual that probably had a hard time making the cut on the team, or was always picked last, but he had that drive and fortitude. And Buds a lot of times those guys flourish because they're like, I've already been told that I'm not good enough, but I'm not going anywhere. You know,
I didn't need to be in first place. I was still in the race. I'm just happy to be here.
Yep.
And I was happy to be there.
Same. Yeah. I remember, I have vivid memories, man, of being in your boat crew. Because I don't think we started off in the same boat crew.
It switched quite a bit.
Yeah. But then by Hell Week, we were in the Smurf crew.
Yeah, we were in Smurf crew.
And I remember you were like super motivated. Like, I was like, oh yeah, this. And I felt the same way. I was like, dude, I was happy to be there every day. I had quite a lot of adversity just even getting to Buds. And that's a whole other. I probably talked about that on the podcast, but every day at Buzz, I was like, dude, I am stoked to be here, even though it's in pain. And I remember you had the same attitude, and I was like, dude, okay, this is awesome.
I remember having, I don't know if you remember this, there was a time that I was at 618, we just did a night evolution, and I was pumped. I was just very, filled with this understanding of there's so many people in the world, but yet we're the only ones right now going through Buds in this moment. Like I was like excited about it. I was like, I can't believe like this chance, this small town kid that came from nothing. I have a chance to do something. Guys, we're doing this. And I got up and I was like, guys, you realize like there's like only a certain amount of people doing this and we get to do this. I know people were like, shut up, Sean. Like we're trying to clean these boats. We're miserable. We just want to go to bed. I'm like, I'm so excited. Like we actually get to do this. This is pretty cool. Yeah, it sucks, but this is where we are. We get to do things that most people can't do. And it's not a lot of people get this opportunity and get this challenge to, even if they don't make it through, they still got to go in and do this and have that opportunity. It's a cool story, whether they made it through or not. Like,
it's a good experience.
It absolutely is. And I worked with a lot of guys that didn't make it through after in like over a dev group. There were some guys that didn't make it through Buds and they went off and did a specialty and they worked their butts off and they were the best at what they did. And they showed that they have what it takes to be good at that discipline, and they were awesome. I would love to work with them any day of the week. Doesn't matter if they make it through Buds or not. They just showed that they have another ability, just that maybe they made a choice.
Yeah.
And we all make choices. So that choice doesn't define them. It just means that, oh, you didn't make it through Buds. Okay, cool.
Which you almost, correct me if I'm wrong, you almost want that to happen, right? Like if you got the Olympic wrestler or the Olympic swimmer, D1 wrestler or whatever, he has other options in his life. Like he can go pursue that, but you don't want him to make it through and be on a SEALs team if he's not 100%. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm not.
You will find out real quick
if
this is not 100% what you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you're tired. Like Eddie said, that you're going to find your limit.
Yeah.
At some point in time, if you're not 100% in, like you probably need to sit down and talk with a psych, because if you're just doing that for punishment, it's a lot of punishment. Eventually, you're going to find your inner voice.
Do you want those guys to go, okay, I choose to do it anyway, and because you don't want someone making it through that doesn't have that.
Well, and like Sean said, it gets found out, and it maybe the instructors might not find it out. The class will find it out eventually. Like we had, I remember paddling around the world, and there was a guy on our boat who refused to paddle.
Oh yes.
And I remember, and we're out of our minds at this point. It's like it's the Thursday night. We're gonna get done with Hell Week the next day, but we are beat to shit, and half of us are hallucinating, and we're just trying to but you're also trying to win. Like you are trying to put out and be the first boat, around the island. You do this whole evolution where you paddle around Coronado Island. Well, there was a guy in our boat that wasn't paddling, and I remember you were the coxswain, and I was up front, and I remember everybody in the boat was screaming at this guy. They were like, dude.
I think you hit him with your paddle at one point, because you were grumpy Ed at that point.
Oh, yeah, dude. I was not. I was out of my mind.
You were a little gremlin.
Yeah, I was ticked. My hands were swollen. I'm just like, dude. And I remember just hearing, this guy's not paddling. He's not putting out. But he ended up falling into the drink.
Yeah.
And I remember all of us were like, leave him. Just keep going. There's no, dude, if you're not putting out with the team, we don't want you.
Yeah.
And it comes out eventually.
Did y'all leave him?
No.
I'm sure.
What's funny is another caveat to that story was when he fell in all by himself. He didn't. Nobody pushed him. He fell in, And everybody had been yelling at him for so long, like, because he would fall asleep and wouldn't paddle, and his paddle sitting in the water. I'm the coxswain back there yelling. He's like, stroke, paddle. He comes up out of the water and says, I didn't fall asleep. And we're like, you fell in the water. Like, everybody saw you get in the boat. And like, we think we're seeing dolphins and stuff like it. We're hallucinating, but we know that you fell asleep because it's a pattern. You do it once. Yeah, maybe you can fool us, but it was a continuation. He would just like sit there and fall asleep. And when he fell in the water and came back up and he's like, I didn't fall asleep. I was like, yeah, okay. You deserve to take a drink. Get in the boat. Let's go.
Do you remember the guy, and I wanted to ask you this too. There was a guy in our boat crew, and I cannot remember his name, but he never cussed. Yeah. Okay. This is Bud's here. This is a great story. We were coming back from breakfast, I think, or breakfast or lunch, and it was the first time that we were allowed to sleep. We get that 2-hour nap in the tent. So you see the tent set up and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to, you're stoked. Well, they have us do races to see who gets secured first to go into the tent. And I remember, man, we were winning every race and we were not getting secured. And I remember they would look over us and be like, that boat, go. And I remember for 3 or 4 times, all right, we're doing it again. We'll win again. And again, we win, not picked. And I remember this guy. This dude was the nicest dude. Yep. Didn't cuss. He snapped and was like,
I do. Oh my God.
Every cuss word was coming out of this guy. I mean, he was mentally breaking down, just screaming about, he stayed with it. We kept going, but I was like, dude, that's Bud's right there.
Yeah. Like the nicest dude just
he
implodes.
There was golly, man, that just bomb of the memories just went off. I forgot about that. Jared Arnold reminded me of the time when we woke up from that nap, and everyone was miserable. But I think certain adversity makes me go to being overly joyful and jovial, and so I ran out into the ocean, jumped in, was playing like a dolphin, just to try and make light of the situation, because I like to do that. If we're in a bad situation, all right, figure it out. Let's make somebody laugh, because then that's going to break the
misery.
The misery. And I was doing the dolphin out there. Look, I'm a dolphin. And we were out of our minds. I think this was Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Might have been Thursday morning. Or it was Wednesday morning. I can't remember when it was. Wednesday. It was all blended in. And that was he reminded me of this, but that was the worst thing I could possibly do, because as I'm doing this, because when you go to sleep, your body starts to scab over. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing all these motions and everything just kind of started peeling off, and I could feel the burning sensation. I was just like, okay, I'm going to go back over here and be miserable with everybody else. But I did get a laugh out of Jared, apparently. He told me, he's like, yeah, it made me laugh. And I was like, well, then I guess after 20 years, it was a win.
It was worth it.
Yeah. Took a long time to get to that. Do you remember Remy Adelecki?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, God, I can't believe that. All these memory.
He didn't make it through that hell week.
Do you remember seeing him fall down?
No.
Because he was in the Green Giants ahead of us in the chow run. And he was in the middle and the back. I remember watching him just, boom, eat it. And I was like, oh, I think Remy just died. And it seemed that serious where he went down hard. I don't know I can't remember if he tripped or what, but that was wild watching him just fall out.
I remember Remy had gone through Hell Week before in some class, and this was his second time coming back. And I remember getting so irritated with him because we would be getting ready to do something, and he'd be like, oh, man, this next thing's going to suck. This next thing's going to... He would just be like...
That's the worst.
And I'm looking at him like, dude, I don't want to know. Yeah. Just shut up. But he was always, oh, wait till tonight. It's going to be bad.
It would be fun if you had heart monitors to watch, see how your heart rate went up every time if he said that, just to see well, Eddie's blood pressure is really high right now. Remy must be talking to him, because that is the worst. If ignorance is truly bliss.
It is.
And if you know what's coming, you're just like, ah. But if you don't know what's coming, you can it's going to end in 5 minutes, and then it lasts 30 minutes, and that's the worst when you know oh no, this is not going to end in 5 minutes. It's going to be a long evolution that is going to just beat the crap out of you.
Yeah, that's why you break it like Dave. I think most of us did the same thing to make it through. Is you break your day down into increments.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I just have to make it to lunch.
Yep.
And then get done with lunch. It's like, I just have to make it to dinner. And I don't worry. Whatever happens between lunch and dinner, I'm going to do. But it's like if you start thinking about, oh, we got this tomorrow, and then next week, it's like you have 180, whatever days left of this. I think that's what also gets people to quit as well. They overwhelm themselves with what's to come instead of just dealing with what's in front of me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point.
What was it like when you 251 you graduated?
251.
251. Sorry. 251. What was it like when you graduated?
Yeah. When I graduated, I felt invincible before the reality check hit when I had to check in.
You've mentioned that.
Like I just felt like on top of the world. I was like, man, I just did it. I joined the ranks of these other individuals that have, accomplished the impossible. But that was like very short lived when you walked in the first day and everybody's like, nobody cares. Everybody else has done the same thing. You've got a lot to learn, catch up. And then it was just like walking in and feeling like you're on top of the world. So you're like this little bitty miniature figurine walk around. I'm like, guys, wait up for me. And it was a reality check, which was needed. And I think that's good that our community does that. Like, don't get stuck in like that whole success thing. Don't get stuck in that. Like you've got more work to do.
Yeah.
Don't be content with it. If you find yourself, I think in certain ways, if that check isn't there, then you become complacent. You will start to like not put enough energy to earn your spot to be there. You may not have that sanity check of you still have a lot to do. And that was what I think our community did very well there.
Yeah. You're only as good as your last house run.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. It's like that's what's great about our community as well is you can be a rock star and you're like, be great at everything. But you let that ego rise up a little bit, you're going to mess up at some point.
Yeah.
And that's a constant thing through your career is like you learn to like bounce back each and every time. And then you also keep your ego at check as well.
Yeah, find what's next. Don't get stuck in it. The more you get stuck in things, and this has played a big part in my life in a lot of ways. You get stuck in something, it's okay to reach out for help. And there's certain ways to go about it. That if you can't reach out for help on being stuck in something, then you're ultimately going to decline even further and faster. And the community is good at, okay, if we just did that one house run and you had a bad run, you're going to do another run. You're going to be able to have another shot. So you learn to that's what I think especially in assaults and house clearances, it does so many things for you because you can break down an entire target into one simple room. And so if you make a mistake in that room, then the run's not over. You still have work to do. So it's the same concept of reaching out for help, like figuring out, okay, I used to like looking over at my buddies and seeing like them breathe, and that would be contagious of like how do I manage my own emotions, take that big deep breath in and let it out and let my shoulders drop. Because I could see his calm, and that would calm breeds calm.
Yep.
And so that would calm me down. That would pull me out of my funk of, okay, cool. And that's that beauty of teamwork and guys being able to use that help, finding where that help is and seeking it. So like, all right, now I've created a habit of if I feel myself being overwhelmed, the good old fashioned take a wrap off.
Yep.
How do I take a wrap off? Because if your body feels like it's just being so tightly squeezed and you got body armor on and you want to have a good debrief when you're in your jocked up mode, you're all tense, you need to take that wrap off so you can breathe. And you learn that habit of calming yourself down and figuring out what avenue, where's the out, where can I escape out and not be stuck in it and just make it worse, 10 times worse, because it happens. If you make a mistake and you stay there and you let it
spiral.
Yeah, it's what is really good when you put pressure on people.
Yeah.
Is it's a good indicator of like how are they going to handle stress is put a little pressure on them, a high stress situation, see how if they spin and crumble and they continue to do that, that's a good indicator they're probably not going to do very well.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to see if you're going to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
We expect you to make mistakes, and I made plenty of them, but it's like also, okay, now you're coming back. Did you learn from it, or are you going to repeat the same thing again?
Same thing with an AR for an operation that goes right.
Yeah.
You sit down and, okay, planning phase all the way through to where we are now is like what went right, what went wrong, And if everything went right, okay, cool. What did we do to get us there? Mm-hmm. And that's probably short-lived because you got to stay and evolve with it. But at the same time, you want to learn from it. I would read other operations that not just the SEALs did, but every other branch of service would do something cool and be like, okay, what can I learn from it? Got to learn from success and failure. How did they do this? Is there a unique approach they did to this, and what worked and why? And make sure you put that in the bucket to pull from next time that you may need a concept or an idea to take that next step in a certain direction.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What? So you checked into Team 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was your first team.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was good. So this is something I reflect back on now, is seeing the cultures that shifted. You know, they came back from some deployments. I think it was the Abu Ghraib prison scandal or whatever. There were some guys involved in that. Mm-hmm. They came back, and then a platoon got disbanded, and so it was a little different. There was some. For me, I was just very impressionable coming in to try and figure out what a SEAL was, because I didn't have it defined for me in the past. And that was where I started to learn from these guys. And I remember checking in and going through each of the departments and learning a little bit about it. And all I could really, my first impression truly is, man, these guys are awesome. They've actually been there. They've seen what happens when the bullets fly. They've put themselves under pressure. They know how they're going to respond. So I was like, I need to emulate them. I need to figure out what they do. Mm-hmm. It was just a bunch of guys with different personalities mm-hmm. that came together as a team. And so there was a lot of, still some of the guys that I admire to this day were on that first platoon, that they taught me so much about, you know, how you define it on when a guy has it, like that ability to be a top performer. I learned very quickly that you need to put in the time. You need to take the time to read the manual and understand its capabilities. And because when you go and employ it, you need to understand how it's used and what it's used for, how we're going to use it in a tactic, but also what the capabilities are. Learn everything you can about the systems that we use, so you're not just out there with a gun that you don't quite understand, with a laser that you don't quite understand. The night vision, do you know all of its capabilities? If you need to turn on the IR part of it, all the little nuances, the attention to detail, you had to put in the time to learn it. And that was what they gave me. It was a blessing. All the guys that, even the guys I didn't get along with, I mean, you're not going to get along with everybody. I liked everybody, but you're not going to be best buds with everybody. I still saw the talent and skill that they had that were great mentors. And even some that weren't so great, but they still had that really tacit knowledge of how to better themselves, because they knew the consequences if you didn't. That if you went and you didn't learn your stuff and you were in a high stress situation, it's not like, oh, I'll just, get a chit or somebody's going to write me up for something. No, people can die. And that was where I learned real quick for those guys that, or from those guys that it takes time and effort to really put in to master the craft that you're in. And I think that's across the board with veterans and first responders, is when you get to see the traumatic things you see, when you see the worst side of things. I learned from those guys initially that when you see that trauma and those traumatic experiences, you put a little bit more effort and detail, or learning of the details. And that was a good experience right away. I got at SEAL Team 5 that I learned.
That's awesome. So you got a pretty good platoon. You're the first.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think from my experience, and because I did all my whole time on the West Coast, and got to do multiple platoons, which was great. But what I noticed is, like, because everybody has different personalities. Each platoon, each team has a different personality.
Yeah.
But what I noticed is, like, guys' personalities form from their first platoon. Like, I think that plays the most impact on them and how they're going to carry themselves through their career. Because I saw guys that didn't have very good, platoons. They maybe didn't have a good platoon chief or OIC, and it was just weak leadership. And they were on their second or third platoon. There was always something what is going on? And it's because their first platoon didn't raise them right. And So
that makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of really good leaders in that first platoon that I did. I learned a lot about emotional intelligence of all things. That I still have a lot of respect for this guy in the heat of combat, being able to calm things down and be direct with somebody, look at them and give them good guidance. And that was something that stuck with me. I was like, okay, sometimes you've got to recognize, your delivery of instruction to people could either amp up or calm down the situation. He did a fantastic job of that. And same thing, there's not just at SEAL Team 5, but all throughout there, that makes a lot of sense that if they continued on with that good, development of individuals from mentors that have that influence. Because it took me a long time to realize this, but those that don't like you watch you the closest. And those that do like you also watch you, but not as intentful as somebody that doesn't like you. I don't know if you've ever figured that out, or if that makes any sense.
Well, they look at things to pick you apart.
Exactly. And so that's where you can have the opportunity to, influence people. And I'm not saying I didn't like anybody. I'm just saying that as a leader, you have opportunities on both sides of how you conduct yourself and bring people up. Always look to lift people up. And I learned that early on in that platoon. And later on, and even over at DAMNIC or Dev Group, there's a lot of good leaders that did that I saw would pick people up. And it's not just those leaders, but there's a lot that I learned on how to make the best of the team. Is not you being the best, it's the team being best. And you got to level them up by helping them out instead of.
Really like how you said delivery, like how you deliver it, how they receive it.
Yeah, I screwed that a lot up until I figured my way, because working with SEALs, like, we can be harsh to each other. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you're not a SEAL, sometimes that can throw a wrench in the works.
Well, yeah, I mean, Dave's seen it with. I mean, if I'm instructing, putting on courses or whatever, I think because I'm a SEAL, or because you're from a SF background, people are a little bit intimidated, and they're like, oh, but then I'm pretty like, know who your clients are, like know what you're teaching, and it's like nobody. When I put on course, I want everybody to be relaxed as possible. I want it to be a learning environment. Yeah. There's no pressure unless we start progressing a little bit in the shooting. We'll add a little bit there, but that's what I have to tell guys when I'm instructing with them, especially if I bring on some new guys that are just getting out of whatever, the Green Beret community or the SEAL community. I'm like, dude, these guys aren't trying out to be on your team. You're not going to operate with them. So let's take some wraps off and actually bring these guys up, as best we can.
Yeah, I think you do really well with it. Like, it's not especially like the calm.
Yeah, but demeanor. I will say in the teams though, it wasn't as it wasn't like
you
that.
have a little.
It's a little
hate
more
fires and echo chambers, and there's some things that you kind of get loose with. It's our love language in a way. Like, I respect you, and I'm gonna talk to you as if like I'm making fun of you, but really I'm trying to tell you, like, hey man, pick it up. Yeah. Like, you screwed up.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a moron. Yeah. And so you kind of learn, like, okay, harsh criticism is them telling you to pull your head out and focus, which was very, it's in the SEAL community at that time, probably still is that same way of like, it's just, us being smart asses to each other, really. Yeah. That's a way for us to not get too emotional on things and like put kid gloves on and sit down like an HR they need to. But at the same time, there was no, hey Eddie, I need to talk to you about something. If
somebody came up to you like that in the SEAL teams, you're probably getting booted.
Yeah, like, I ain't got time for this. What do you need to say? Just say
man,
it.
We need to talk. You're like, oh shit.
We're at the round table, right? Like, if you need to say something, because I'm gonna go fix it if it needs to be fixed. If it's not broken, I don't need to fix it. So where are we at here? I got work to do. And that's something that I think that I had to learn when I worked with non-SEALs, like regular Navy people that work through a pipeline in the community. That was when I managed that type of personnel. That was truly my human resources eye-opening experience. Was not everybody can handle the direct, hey, you screwed this up. You need to sit down and do a little bit more calibrated approach to men and women that are not used to the harsh language you can use. And so I had to adjust, which was a blessing in a way that I got to adjust and not be so quick to, hey, you screwed that up. Yeah. Get over here.
Having kids helped me do that too as well.
I'm still trying to figure it out. Jack, my wife, God bless her heart, it was our anniversary last night.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
How many years?
7.
Nice, man.
7. And she, it's the longer that we're together, the more I feel like, God had a plan for me, like, because my whole life I wanted to be a dad, and a father, or a husband, and you know, I prayed for it, and finally God sent her to me, and I was like, oh, I kind of like this girl, and we ended up getting married, and you know, we butted heads, we struggled, like that was the newlywed thing, we struggled for a while, and she had a 2-year-old son named Jack when I met her, and so I instantly became a father and became a husband right away, and so I had to grow up really quick to learn how to be a dad. And so it was like, she had so much grace with like me not knowing how to raise a kid. I'm a boy. I wanted to play with him and hang out with him all the time, but also would be like, no, you got to discipline him. And I wouldn't scream and yell, but I'd be like, and she's such a soft person. Like, she's such a great mom that she would, like for me, I was like, hey, let's go do something. He can run outside and play by himself. And she's like, no, he can't. He's 3. You can't. I'm like, well, I did when I was growing up. Like, but I was letting him outside in the backyard or in the garage. Like, there's motorcycles in there. There's things that he could get hurt. I don't think that way. I'm like, let's just go have fun. And that kind of shepherded me into like, and Jack truly has taught me how to be a man. I think you can be a man, but when you start having to raise kids, that's where you got to learn to be a man, because there's someone else that's depending on you, that's going to do the things that you do, and that's how that they look at you. And that was, he's still to this day, like I learned so much from him that it was such an awesome experience. I have so many funny memories with him, and he just turned 11, or no, he's going to turn 12 in September, or no, August. And knowing him since he was 2 has been just such a blessing. Of some of the coolest memories of us dancing. It let me be. Before I was immature in a way of like, I'm going to go buy a new motorcycle and do all these poor decisions like I'm a man-child.
Well, everything's about you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's me.
And then it's to him. And now it was trying to learn how to balance that. And it was a lot better being that kid with a kid, where I'm having dance parties and stuff like that, dancing with records, just dancing goofy, so I could find a new outlet to, you know, be a person that was not just so, you know, wound up in myself and being intense.
That's what my wife says. That's the one word that, because I got married right before my first platoon, and then she had 2 kids already. They were super small. So I literally came back from my first deployment into a new marriage and 2 kids, and like exact same thing. All the sentiments that you're hitting was like, yeah, they taught me how to be a man, like, and it was I'm a slow learner too, so
it's okay.
It was a long process. But yeah, it's amazing, like, just how your kids can show you like what your deficiencies are. And like, dude, I need to step it up. But then also I was being the fun dad, like I'd come back from deployments or trips and I'm like, I don't want to discipline them. Because and I would tell them, I'm like, well, what if something happens to me? And then that's the last memory they have is me disciplining them. But she was like, that's part of being a man. Like, you have to. And I'm like, oh.
Good on her, man.
Yeah,
good on her.
My wife doesn't mince words. You'll meet her in a bit. Yeah.
Do you have any daughters?
I do. I got she just got engaged last week, so she's 21.
What?
Yeah, big news.
I didn't know.
Yep. To Luke. Yeah.
So you may be Grandpa Eddie here pretty soon.
Let's not. let's take it as it comes. Right.
All right. Let's go backwards here.
Yeah. But yeah, I had boy, girl, boy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I had the 2 from Andrea, but they were, like I said, super small, and then we had Ryan before my second deployment.
Man, so having a daughter, like when Annalise, she gave birth to Amelia, that was such, I think, you know, I go back through my entire life of, there was so much testosterone.
Yeah.
And my 5 boys, you know, we're all on our own. Then I go into the SEAL teams, it's like testosterone city. That's all I knew. And then Jack comes into play, and Jack is such a sweet kid, super smart. And then Amelia came along, and I was like, what is this daughter thing? The first time that I learned that we were having a girl, I started trying to tie pink bows and learn how to tie pink bows because I thought that was like how to be a girl dad. But it's so much more.
Yes.
I find myself, I have watched a lot of Frozen, and now we're on Wonder Woman. Like, we're real deep into Wonder Woman.
Nice.
Linda Carter. The old school ones.
The old school one.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we watched the old school ones, and she loves it. But she's like, Jack is super smart and very, like, one of the smartest kids I know. He's smarter than me right now. So now we're kind of I kind of mentored him. Now he's mentoring me. But my daughter is like a Tasmanian devil, and she's a princess that's just wild. Like, she's not afraid of dirt, animals. She's very curious. I see a lot of me in her with the intensity. That's one word that our marriage counselor told us, like, well, Sean is a little bit intense. It's not that he's mad. He's just intense.
Yes.
He gets excited, and then he gets intense. But that's what I see in Amelia, is that she's very intense, and she's focused, and she loves to do things that I never thought of as a parent, that I would be doing, like, a girl's hair and then complimenting her on her dress, or telling her she looks pretty, and watching these girly princess videos and movies, and having to learn princess names and the dynamics. But it was so good for me because it balances me. It made me have a different perspective on things of, oh, okay, I've got to teach Jack to be a man, to respect and appreciate someone that could be the man that's trying to date my daughter.
Yes.
And that's what I think of now, is like, what kind of man do I want Jack to be? What kind of man can I be to be the man that I want to see date my daughter?
Or what kind of man are you being that your daughter is going to emulate whoever she marries off of how you treat her and how you act. And that's, I had to learn that over the years as well. And it's pretty crazy. Yeah. Like, whoever thought watching Wonder Woman or playing with hair, like tying pink bows, is actually part of, like, becoming a man, becoming a better man.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a wild ride. It's something that, it changes people, I think, when they go through these phases of life. Of what do you need in your life? You never know. You don't truly know. Like, don't be afraid of change, because change can actually be a huge blessing. And I just hope that I am the right dad and father that I've been praying for. And that's why I said last night out at dinner with my wife, we both wrote ourselves cards, and we both kind of said the same thing, because we're growing into a new phase, I think, in our marriage of, learning a little bit more about ourselves each and every day, and appreciating the perfect pairing of it. Like, she picks up the slack where I fail, and because one of the things that we had to discover was we both try to be perfect for each other, which caused way too much damage.
It puts too much stress on both.
100%. Like, I'm trying to, like, be perfect for her, and getting mad and disappointed with myself, and then it just snowballed. It was just like a terrible thing, and she's doing the same thing. I don't know it, and we're just both, like, frustrated, and come to find out we're both trying to do too much for each other, but instead of just being and learning and growing together as a unit.
Yeah.
That was a cool revelation for us, and I think that we just celebrated 7 years of doing some good things, and excited about the next however long I live, because I know she's going to be pushing me around in a wheelchair at some point. She's younger than me, so she's going to be taking care of me, and thank God she's a nurse practitioner.
Well, congrats on that. That's really awesome. Yeah. And you guys were married while you were in as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's been through it too as well.
Yeah, and that's something that I failed. Being a single team guy, is understanding the amount of. I just think of guys that were married going through buds.
Like, dude,
that's incredibly challenging. Hats off to the guys that go through any selection training married with kids. That's just hard, especially on the spouse. Like, man, I couldn't even begin to think of that. And as a single guy going through buds, like, I didn't understand the time demand away from kids and family, and what that strain did on those married folks. As a single guy, you don't realize that. It's just ignorance. And I wish I had that knowledge back in, the early days of being a SEAL, and understand it, and had more. Not that I screwed up by saying, like, oh, they need to put in more time, but I now understand, like, they need to get home. Like, I need to work harder to get them out of there. I would have probably a different viewpoint of, like, making sure that if there's a way to volunteer, I was always the first volunteer anyways, but if there's a way to get married guys home, and I'll argue to anybody now, I'm like, no, they need to get out of here. Like, they need to be there, because they've got more than just us.
I became more aware of that when I started picking up leadership roles, like when I LPO and a platoon chief, and I was, like, more adamant with the guys that were married, like, hey, I'm all about spending time, beds on heads, like, making sure you have time with your family, but at the same time, and this is a reality of just being in the teams come first. It comes first above your marriage. It hurts to say, and I remember My wife had that talk with me one time, and she literally told me, and it hurt to hear. Mm-hmm. She's like, "You put the teams before us every single time," and I was like, it was hard to hear because I'm like, no, I don't. But then I had to come to the realization, like, yes, I do, and that's the only way that this can function. But at the same time, you can still find ways to find that balance.
So I had a really good leader over at Dev Group that, and this is where I think that we all learn from, our own experiences. Diversity is not anything other than your own experiences, and I love that, the depth of that. The leader that I had he had his own marital problems, but he persevered. And so he saw me in my moment when I was struggling and I was bringing it into work. He saw how stressed I was. And we know not to bring your problems into work, but he sat me down and he put it into perspective for me that made so much sense at the time before. I was like, no, teams come first. And he was like, hey, man, the teams also needs you and your family needs you. Build the equity at home so that you can be present at work.
Yeah.
And it just like hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. Like, all right. And he was like, just take your time and let us know what you need. Like, and then he kind of shared his story with me of like, hey, and I struggled. Everybody's going to have, marriage is not something that's perfect. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to do some stupid stuff, and then your ego is going to get in the way. Like, there's so many things that he was like lining out what he went through, and I was just like, yep, that checks out. Like that relates. And so then I put more focus in on my marriage of, my wife and kids should come first in that point. Like, I needed to build that equity at home so that they could rely on me. And if I'm going to go off and do something, that I don't leave in a bad way, because it's going to leave them. They're going to struggle and I'm going to struggle. And I also need to be present at work so I can function and give the team everything, because the team did come first. People rely on us, especially at Dev Group. A hostage that's overseas is going to want the best that's in the right frame of mind. If you're not giving them that, like, you don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And so that hit me hard. I was like, man, that was a great perspective that I needed to, like, okay, stop trying to push through. And I've been writing a lot on like a complete warrior. Like, you have warrior spirit, warrior in life, and warrior on the battlefield. And so being a good warrior on the battlefield is going to take, you balancing your warrior life and your warrior spirit. And that was something that I wasn't doing. I was actually out of sync and trying to compensate in one, which actually was degrading the whole thing. So I wasn't complete. And that was something that he did for me. It was a huge step in the right direction as a leader for him. But also I took that as a leader now as like, just because Eddie may be frustrated, I need to find out, not Dr. Phil, no offense to Dr. Phil, but not sit down and pretend that I can go and like coach him. But I also need to dig in and say, hey, what does Eddie need? Like, we're here for you. Like, I'm not going to look down on you. You can be honest with me and say, if you need help, then let's go get you some help. That's what a teammate is for. And that was something that he really shaped for me as a leader, which was really cool for him to do.
And that's unique as well, I think. Yeah, I mean, because not a lot of leaders are like that either. You got some that are like, I mean, I actually remember in first phase, Rideau and somebody, Simons, they gave us a speech. They're like, they asked who's all single here, and most of us raised our hand, and they were like, stay that way. Don't ever get married in the teams. Like, they were adamant about it. They're like, this is all that matters. And that was like the speech they gave us, and there are some that, through my career that held on to that mindset where it's like, this is it. But the reality is, it's like the teams are going to go away. Like, you will leave, and then your wife and kids are the ones who are going to be with you the rest of the way. So if you don't learn how to mix the two and then do your best with both elements, then you are literally going to fail at one.
Because when you get too broken down and old and you start having that downtime, I joke, but I do think that, my wife, she takes care of me in many ways now, but my wife and kids are going to take care of me later too.
Yep.
And it's sad to see somebody that could spiral because, they just had a poor influence in their lives that made them make that bad decision. I didn't see too many of those. I saw a lot of, misaligned. And I'm not casting judgment on any leader.
No, not at all.
Leadership is
when
hard.
I say that, I'm not like bashing those leaders. It's everybody has their own experience.
Yeah. Everybody does have their own experiences, and it's hard.
How long were you in for total?
22 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many pumps did you do at 5 before you went over?
2.
2?
Well, I did 2, and then I went to Tradet.
That's right.
I got in a little trouble in Germany. Came back, and then I went to
smoking pot again.
No, it's fun. I mean, so there was this push to have, decompression stop to like, instead of coming back from war where you're in a gunfight and then go back and trying to reintegrate into society, which is like it's a bad move. They decided let's put them in Germany for a little bit with some beer and free time, and nobody really wanted it because they want to get home to their families. So it was like it was a test case that didn't go so well because there's a lot of guys that just like me would go out and drink and get into trouble. And so in a way I look at it as everything happens for a reason, and it was good. I learned a lot. I went to Tradet and from some incredible leaders, like a lot of them work for Jocko now. Some awesome dudes that I had really good times. I love working with JP, Lois, and some of the other guys. I think they're still active, so I won't mention names, but they were such a good crew because they came back from the Ramadi deployment. We were in charge with teaching assaults, and I got to have a deep dive into understanding a little bit more of the tactics and seeing a different side of things on how to slow down and teach people and facilitate learning lessons learned to build the tactics, because they evolve. You can't be stagnant in the same thing, or else you would end up being the poor choice, because if you don't evolve with it, it's going to evolve without you, and you're going to be obsolete. It's just like technology. If you don't keep evolving with technology, you're going to be sitting there with the typewriter trying to send an email. It's not going to work because you got to fold it up and figure out how to get it in the mail and send it to somebody. It was.
You hear that, Eddie? You got to.
That's always a work in progress. Work in progress with me with the admin. Yeah,
that's okay, man.
Yeah,
we all have our vices.
It's right, man. That's self-admitted weakness.
How many years in each team? Like, you were in 5 first, and then
I did about 12 over at Dev Group, which is the majority of my career. Which was, it doesn't seem like, I look back at my entire career, and time flies so fast. It just seems like yesterday we were, going to chow and buds. Yeah. And then here I am, like retired and going on these different ventures and having a family. It just went by really quick. And I look at that chapter of my life as, I had a very rough and unique upbringing, but it was a blessing. And then I go through the teams, and I had, experienced a lot of really cool things in a very wild time in the United States. And, we're in a 20-year war, 20-plus year war, and we're in combat for the entire time. And those experiences were so...
It's a privilege.
It really was. Like, the timing of it. I look at everything as timing. The opportunity that was presented in the time that it was not my doing. Every single operation went on, every single lesson that I learned, there was a timing piece to it. I probably couldn't learn all those things if I had joined 20 years before. They did some great things, but then 20 years after this, there's going to be a completely different set of, challenges that the United States military is going to have to face. And so just the timing of it was unique, and that was a blessing to experience that. Now that chapter's closed, and they've got the torch, and they're running fast with it, doing great things. And
how many deployments?
I don't even know. That's a great question.
You were 8 or 9?
9, yeah.
9.
Probably that. Depends on what a deployment is, because I did certain cycles.
Yeah, you guys deploy
group,
more.
Yeah.
They deploy, was it 4 months?
4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
So they have a little bit shorter.
And then we have alert when we do.
Yeah, but then they're on a whole different cycle.
Oh, okay.
So
it's quite a bit different than regular.
I spent a lot of time. I calculated most of my time I thought it was going to be Iraq. And I thought number 2 would be Afghanistan, but my most time spent was in Africa.
Oof.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming. I look back and it's like, oh man, I spent all the time in Africa. That's crazy. Which is cool. Like, I got to see some really cool things, but out of all my time, I didn't think that I would tally up more time in there than Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, well into the war, we were spread out all over the place.
Yeah.
I think Iraq, Afghanistan was like the main, we were all, and then eventually we started spreading out, going to Africa,
ISIS came along, and
Yeah. It was, dude, it really was. It was that's the way I look at it. It was such a privilege to be in when we were in, and I never take that for granted. And especially, I think a lot of dudes have struggled with, especially the way the Afghan war ended and
the
withdrawal, and that rightly so. It's like, yeah, you can be frustrated, but I don't look at it negatively. I'm like, dude, if it was the same outcome, I'd go do it all over again.
Oh yeah,
because it was a golden era of SOF. We evolved so quickly over the 20 years, and it's like not a lot of people get that experience.
The adversity that you go through, it actually helps build the character. And no matter what, when people struggle and they have something that they need to overcome, that's the defining moment is after.
Yeah.
Not the event itself. Like trauma, I say trauma like as if everything we did was traumatic. In a way it was. You have different like good and bad. And so that doesn't define me. Like I don't see Sean Murphy as just that person that went through all those different ups and downs as a SEAL. There was also, my childhood and, everyone else. Like I look at all the veterans, all the first responders, like most people are not prepared. We were not prepared for what we were going to go see. And those traumatic events, nobody's prepared what they're going to go through. And so that's the hardest reality that we all have to face is you shouldn't want to go and face that. It's something that you've got the courage to go do, but once you go through it, it's a whole different story than what you could possibly imagine. I think of the first responders that get the call to go into a horrible vehicle accident, or the doctors and nurses that are in the emergency room that get all the crazy stuff that comes through the door. And now they're in charge with saving a life. That's got to be more, I think of like that has to be incredibly challenging for first responders, firemen too, going in to pulling people out, and like the things that they do day in and day out, you're not prepared for it when you haven't seen it. And so that's something that it doesn't, just because you go through something that's traumatic doesn't make you a bad person if you struggle. It's something that you find your way through with other people. And so all the things that we went through, we're all going to struggle with it because there's no way that you could literally say, I'm going to prepare you for this. Oh. You can do the best you can, but then the harsh reality hits, and that's where you got to take that next step to figure out how do we make that move to be proactive and not reactive when people are struggling, because you don't know. Nobody truly knows what people are going through.
No.
Especially some of the evil that you guys saw.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shared sentiment over, not just from the special operations community, but like you said, first responders, law enforcement, like we all do. And then you don't even have to be part of that group either. I mean, human beings in general struggle with day-to-day stuff that it might not seem like anything to you. Like you're like, oh, what? But to them, that's a big deal. And that's I also learned that from raising kids as well. Like when Ava, my daughter, would be in high school and she's complaining to me about some girl did something on social media or whatever, and I'm looking at it like there's no problem here. Like in my mind, I'm like, are you being shot at? Then what's the big deal? But
are you asking me to kill her?
But that's the wrong answer. You know what I mean? It's like just because I don't think it's a big deal. That is the biggest thing in her life going right now. And if I don't respond to it,
you're also teaching her how to deal with it.
Yeah, how to respond to it. But you can't just shrug it off, like especially with kids. Like that's nothing, because then that's something to them, and they'll still have that hurt with them instead of helping them process through it. And it's kind of, it's comical, because you're like, okay, let's talk about what Susie said. And
well, that's where I truly struggle now, is like all the high stress things that we call combat. Like I think I conditioned myself pretty well how to handle it and manage that stress, but now stress with like dealing with how do you deal with the problems like within a marriage or within your kids or within a workplace, and that's something that is a different type of stress. So you got to learn to manage and understand how you're going to respond to it. And it's just a new thing that going back to the complete warrior thing is, it's not just reserved for veterans, first responders, and military.
No.
Or anybody that's been through one of these jobs I just described. Is there's people in the workplace that have worked their butts off and been through a lot of things that are very challenging. The high stress of high demands things. It's if you compare things, then you're never going to find fulfillment. You're going to deny reality in certain things, because you're not going to. If I say that just because I went and did all these things that you don't have value, like that's me just being stubborn. I should never think that way, because if you're going through challenges, now that I'm out of the military, I see that in corporate world now. The challenges they face that I'm like, oh, that's a simple team building problem. Oh, that's a leadership problem. I can help you through that. But then they unpack what is stressful to them because that's their daily life. That's that warrior in the battlefield. That's their battlefield that they continue to battle every single day. They work hard. They get up. They struggle to make ends meet. And that to me is like, now as a father and a husband, I was like, man, that's a weight. Yeah. I don't care who you are and what career you're in. If you're getting your butt up and you're struggling to make it through and make the ends meet, that to me is like, you're a warrior. You do that every day. Even though it hurts, it's the same thing going through buds. It hurts, but you get up and you get out and you go get in that fight again, because that's what makes a man. That's what makes a strong woman, is being able to endure those challenges that you face as a warrior. And so you got to complete yourself both in the war on the battlefield, the spirit, and life, because if you don't balance those things, it weighs on you heavy. And that's why I don't think that if anybody just says, oh, you can't compare to what I did. Well, that's true in a way in that context, but there's other things you can learn from these people that have made this country great in what they're doing. While we're overseas taking care of business, someone else is taking care of business back at home. So it's a yin-yang thing for me, is that I respect the people that I can learn so much from and grow from because of what they have done in their life to bring themselves to a point that I can learn from. And if I ever find myself I'm not valuable, and I've been in some dark spots where I'm like, I don't have value. I don't feel like I can do anything because whatever bad self-talk, and I didn't realize like there's always somebody that sees value in me. Yeah. Whether it's my wife, my kids, God, God's a good person to, I think of, if I ever feel alone, I can just say, yep, at least one person loves me, right? So, and being in those spots, realizing that there's going to be somebody else that sees you the way that you don't see yourself. Yep. There's a two-way mirror in that thing, I think, and that's how I look at don't degrade anything that you do because you think that just because you're not getting shot at it's not worth paying attention to. And I look at that with kids too. Like, I need to do a better job. And that's for some things that I struggle with as a parent is how do I make sure that I'm applying the right approach to things? And I can't beat myself up if I screw it up. No. You're going to screw a lot of things up. You got to
give yourself grace. Yeah.
You've got to. My wife has more grace than anybody I've ever met because of, just the intensity levels that I've got of like, I want to do something. I screw a lot of things up and she's got a lot of grace. As a matter of fact, I went to the Bible Museum in DC and I got her a little stone that had the words grace engraved in it. I gave it to her because that's like, she's my rock and she's grace. Like, there's no better way to say it. And just because I screw up doesn't mean that, I'm a bad father or a bad husband. We all make mistakes. Yeah. We all screw up. You got to learn to work through and be a warrior and a complete warrior, not just only look at one aspect of it and think that you're going to dominate, because you're not. It's just that, going back to like your point earlier with buds. Mm-hmm. If you think that you're going to be perfect at everything, you're going to crumble and fall. I look at life as the same way. You can't look at everything as you're going to be perfect. You can strive for perfection and obtain excellence, but you're not going to be perfect. There's no one out there that's perfect. Only one person.
That's God.
Jesus Christ walked this earth that he was perfect.
Come on.
So you ended up, so you obviously went over to the command or the unit, did your time there. Mm-hmm. I'm sure we don't have to get into everything there because I know how that is. I mean,
it's the command dev group.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But like overall, like your time there, phenomenal.
Yeah, that was, man, when I went through Green Team, I learned I didn't know what I didn't know. And I saw great guys, great SEALs that didn't make it through. And I saw some that I was like, I don't know if they're going to make it through. And they made it through. But when I showed up there, the speed at which everything went and the amount of resources, all the things, like, I look at when you first start off, you come out of buds and now you're learning to be a SEAL. Here you got to come up another level. Yeah. So you don't have time to stop and do the growth. You do it in a certain way, but it's a much, much higher pace. You've got to learn to be adaptable. You've got to, if you snowball, like we talked about before, you make mistakes, you can't make it there. You may be a good team guy. You can go do great things, but you won't make it there because it's such a fast pace of everything that you do that there's no time to stop. You don't have the luxury, especially when you're the first person that calls. Same thing like with any tier 1 unit. You're the first person that gets the call, and you have to be the sharpest people that are there to do that job, because if not, why are you going to give that person a call? Or think of how you're going to hire somebody. The best of what they do, how do they get there? Yeah. You can't be just, well, he's okay. Mm-hmm. No, if I'm going to go after somebody, I want the best, and that's what you need to be when you get there. It's nothing against anybody. I know guys that didn't go through the first time could recycle and make it through. Yeah. You just got to learn that you're trainable. You got to be very fast in what you learn and do, and that was nonstop. It was the best advice I got was, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Be careful. And it is a sprint, but you've got to pace yourself.
Yeah, or else you'll burn out.
Yeah, I got burnt out.
Most of my buddies that went over there,
it'll chew you up.
Yeah, they get chewed up near the end because it's just like you said. They're like, dude, it's nonstop, and you are on point all the time.
Yep.
That's the biggest difference between other SEAL teams and Dev Group is the pace. And do you get more? You said it's a different deployment cycle where you do 4 months.
Yeah.
And then you get more. Do you get more missions?
I don't know. The volume. It's the amount of work that's there. Like, so my first 2 platoons at SEAL Team 5, we went out a lot, and I did a lot over at Dev Group. So yeah, I don't think there's like an imbalance there. I think there's an opportunity. It's just you're given a lot more responsibility over at Dev Group. You're more seasoned. You're a little bit more mature. You could be an E6, which I was, and run an outstation. And when I mean run an outstation, you're in charge of hundreds of people with millions of dollars of a budget with a certain part of the battlefield that you're running operations on, and you're the ground force commander, which I'm an E6. Usually an 03 to an 05 does that. And I'm doing it as a very young SEAL that just has to have that ability to navigate the battle space and learn to navigate different units and accomplish a mission that typically you wouldn't be in charge of. Managing aircraft, managing all the personnel, making sure you got all the equipment and every sensitive item that's out there, you're in charge of all that. And that was like thrown at you because you can handle it. Most SEALs could handle it. It's just that you're thrust into that a little bit more quickly over there at Dev Group.
Yeah. And like they're guys over at Dev Group, like they, depending on where they go, what squadron they go to, they're pretty much, you're in that squadron for, depending, but for the most part, right? Like for the remainder. So if you're getting new guys over there, they're already seasoned, coming from the regular SEAL teams, and it's already expected, like, you will perform here, and this is what's expected of you. Where in the regular SEAL teams, you're getting new guys from BUDS and SQT and getting put in your platoon. So you're constantly, each rotation, you're constantly having to, okay, now let's bring these guys up to speed each and every time. So what I found is it was really hard to, like, break past and advance, to where you want it to be. Like, I was very frustrated. I'm like, we could be doing more, but it's like at the same time, we're going to be overwhelming the new guys. So you're only as fast as your slowest guy. So you're always going back like, okay, let's catch these guys up. And what I found is, like, by the end of it, like, wherever work up, you've gotten to a certain point and you're like, we're locked on and everything's good. But to advance is a lot harder because, like I said, you're not only that, but you go do a deployment, come back, and then everybody's getting disbanded to go to either different platoons or training units. Then you're getting a whole nother group in. So it's you don't have that continuity like you do over in Dev Group.
And it moves, like I said, very fast, and you need that. So you need that competency level. Like, working with Rangers and Green Berets now, outside of that, they do the same thing. Once you get to a certain maturity level, it doesn't matter what group you're in. You have a certain competency level. You have a base knowledge you can pick up pretty quick. And so you can find a way to fit in. But if you're starting from scratch, whether it's a brand new person in any one of those units, it's going to take time to develop that person into where they need to be. And it's just the same thing with any team, really. You've got to find a way to give them a good mentor, making sure that they have what they need, because that's your job now as a leader. You're a facilitator. You got to make sure that every person is up to speed in that. And that was one of the early lessons that I learned as a leader over there at the SEAL teams was once you get into a leadership position, it's no longer about your performance. It's about your team's performance, making sure they're manned, they're trained, equipped, and they're ready to go and do the mission that you need to do. Because your job as a leader is to tell that commander, yes, we are ready to go to war, or we are ready to go to work. Because if not, and you're lying because you're more worried about your performance or whatever, then you're actually going to set people up for failure and yourself.
You're doing a disservice to everybody underneath you. Yeah.
I learned that real quick because I had good leaders that sat me down and had that talk of like, listen, we need to make sure that you have what you need. You're up. You can stay at the level that we need you to be and be able to perform on the battlefield because that's where we're going.
Yeah, you get a lot more, I think, leadership experience over there as far as, once you get put in those positions of responsibility.
Yep.
Which that sort of transfers into what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that. So what year did you retire?
So it was in 22 years to February of 2023.
Nice. Not that long ago.
No, it's pretty quick.
Still fresh out a little bit. Yeah. What was it your decision to retire? Like, hey, I'm good.
I looked at where I was because COVID just happened. I had my daughter. It was a huge stress. And I always said, if I'm not giving back into the team in the way that I feel I should, it's time for me to step away. And we're in a very frustrated time, the Afghanistan withdrawal, and guys weren't getting a lot of work and being told no for operations. So that weighed a lot on me. And the things that I was doing was I went from an assault cell into a completely different squadron that did some very unique things that was a lot more challenging. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I was managing a bunch of different people that weren't just SEALs. And and like I said, that was a blessing in itself, is learning the dynamics of different people. And so I started to feel that burnout. I wanted to be with my family. I could feel my body getting older and carrying my daughter. She was new, and I was like, I want to be with my kids. If I'm going to be a hindrance to the SEAL teams in any capacity, I need to make sure and get out of the way. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to take a step back and retire and go do something different. And that's talk to my wife about it. She's always supportive of me. I talked to her and she's like, yeah, I support you. So do what you need to do, which is nice. Cause I'm always like nervous. Like, is she going to say no? Is she going to yell at me, tell me I'm a failure? And she actually, the sweetest thing. She's like, yes, I support you. So I decided that's the time to take a step back and retire.
And how was that transition getting out?
It was challenging. At first I didn't realize the level of pressure during a small amount of time. I spent 22 years in my identity. And when you first get in, it takes several years for you to even get to a platoon to figure out what a SEAL is. Mm-hmm. So it took all that time to figure out what you're going to do. And then I did all that time. And now I'm like, well, what am I going to do? I got to provide for my family. Do I want to go work like for another government agency, or do I want to go be a law enforcement? Do I need to be near a gun, body armor? What do I need to do? And it was challenging to really, truly find that groove that I could get in, that could give me that value, that sense of purpose, but also be able to provide for my family. I couldn't just go have fun.
Yeah.
And so that was rough. Doing that with the amount of paperwork and bureaucracy that you got to go through of getting out, doing your medical records, all the admin paperwork, making sure all your awards are in there, all the your military education, the things that you've done that you don't realize is important, all the administrative things. It gave me a whole newfound of respect for the admin folks that took care of all that.
Yeah.
But then also afterwards, you're going to be out doing your combat related service compensation paperwork, your disability, like when you go through your medical record and all that stuff. I didn't realize that's important because it's not just for you, it's also for your family. You need to make sure that's tight so that you get the help you need and it doesn't bog you down and now you're painful 3 years out and you're wondering where can I get help, when if you did it through the VA at the first time, you don't have to go through that paperwork again on the outside and figuring out. And that was a lot, going through the moving all your household goods, doing the paperwork for that. There was just so much that I had to do and figure out what is this person what is Sean Murphy outside the military? Trying to reconnect with Sean Murphy before he was a SEAL, now after his SEAL. Like, what does that look like? And that was very challenging to figure out because I didn't have a network. I didn't understand corporate world. I didn't understand the jobs, the industries, what it took. I could see it from certain sides, like procurement and stuff like that. You're dealing with different companies to do training and acquire gear, and you even had a supply department to help you with that. But now on the other side, being, well, what does a company even do? Like, where would I fit in? Mm-hmm. And how can I speak their language? And that was really challenging. That was, I had some hard times. There were times I remember just being so like overwhelmed, just sitting there with my head in my hands, just in a spot, being like, who am I? And like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to be a failure. And the worst thing, because I would just continue to draw down in this dark place of, I'm going to fail the community. Everybody's watching me being like, Sean, you idiot, you're failing. Like, how could you go be a SEAL and go through all this? And now you're outside. So I was willing to do anything, like figure out something. And then I was like, I'm failing my family. I'm not going to be a good father or husband. And I know I'm not the only one that struggles with certain aspects of this, of trying to figure out this weight that you're carrying.
I would say about 90-something% of us go through that exact same thing that you're talking about. I went through it. I've talked to multiple people, multiple of my buddies I get out. It's really like extraordinary, like what makes us good team guys and like what drives us in the teams and like how we are able to like excel, but it's through pressure and, you know, competition and just trying to, that can also be a detriment when you get out, because you put that, I felt it on myself, and I'm like, and my wife would be like, why do you think about yourself this way? Because I was like, dude, I'm not like, I'm nothing. Like, this is, I can't do, you know, it's just all this pressure and negative self-talk.
Yep.
And
it's that brain thing. You go to the negative, and I think negative gets you there faster because you start going that magnet stronger on that side.
Yep.
And the worst thing is, I truly believe this, is that for me, I can only speak for Sean Murphy here, but I'm speculating, assuming that some other guys go through this, is like, you don't want to go to another team guy and be like, dude, I'm struggling. It takes a lot to get to that point. Yeah. And some people I don't think ever get there.
How come?
It's just the ego. You have a mental block of not wanting to be a failure, because you go through the entire career of never giving up, never being a failure. And that's, in my eyes, I was thinking, like, if I don't go out and do all these great things right away, that I'm a failure. And I was like, not even 6 months out and thinking that I'm failing when really I wasn't. But to me, the inside of me was saying, if I don't go out and do something right away and be on top of things, that every SEAL is looking at me. Every person that looks at a military member thinks I'm failing, and I'm just a wash up. I had the images of, like, if you go back in like the 90s and early 2000s, of the homeless veteran, that's what I thought was what I was going to look like if I came to anybody else and said, dude, I'm struggling. They're going to be like, oh, get away from me. Yeah. Because you don't, and the weird thing about that is, if I think of this now, like, if I have somebody that's in a panic and I'm trying to focus and do an operation, I don't want that person with panic near me. Because if you think of, if you're trying to do something and someone is like stressed out and panicking, you're like, whoa, back up a minute. Yeah. That's kind of how I felt like everybody would view me, as like, I'm that person. They're like, whoa, get away. And I haven't even tested it yet. But in reality is, most people are receptive, being like, I got you, bro. And I go back to like that leader, a dev group that told me, is like, hey, build equity at home. Like, he was vulnerable. I didn't want to be vulnerable and open up a little bit and say, yeah, we're not perfect. No human being is perfect. But at the same time, I have been like, I guess, tarnished with thinking that I need to have this image of myself and for others to protect, suffer in silence. Like, I needed to protect that.
What I'm super curious about this, because I mean, it's a theme that we see a lot. But like you mentioned this picture of someone panicking and like on the battlefield, I'm assuming. Is that what you're meaning? And it's like, okay, training, hey, no, you got to calm down. Like, and inside you feel like you were that panicking guy, and guys are going, whoa, get that away from me. That's like how you picture it.
Yeah, and like you put on a face, and I think you get used to doing that as well. Like, even when when you're in the teams or operational, you might have struggles at home, but guess what? When I show up to work, you wouldn't know it. I'm like, I'm good. Everything's good. And so you're used to that repetition. And then I remember when I got out, one of the most hurtful like things to myself is I would run into other team guys, and they're like, "Oh, dude, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm good." And they're like, "Bro, yeah, you look like you're doing awesome." But on the inside, I was like dying. I'm like, dude, but I could not bring myself to tell them like, dude, I'm not doing good.
I wish I had. Did you go to NICO?
Yeah, I went to Intrepid Spear, which is like a branch off of NICO, yeah.
So in NICO, it's up in Bethesda, Maryland. They have this drill where you have this mask and you paint it. And they want you to paint this mask. And some guys are very talented. Every special forces out there or special operations unit goes through it. And there are some CAD guys there. And some guys they need to go into artistic jobs somewhere because they're talented on what they could do with these masks, like paper mache things. And for my mask, I wish I could bring it out because what you just described is I put on my mask, I just made a happy face, super smiling, nice. But on the inside, I drew like a suffering. Yeah. Like I painted to where you could see pain in the eyes of the mask. And they were like, wow, that's interesting. Tell me about that. And I was like, well, just like you said, on the outside, I'm very good at putting up a front because I can walk through the day and have a smile on my face. But inside, I'm turning on something. Like there's something inside of me. And that's where when I broke out those 3 pillars, my warrior spirit is what's going on in here. And I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know how to like rationalize, all right, how do I break free of this turmoil that I'm causing myself? And I couldn't figure it out. And that's some of the times when I have my head in my hands, like I couldn't figure it out and calm it down. But in my reality, it was like learning to either meditate, to like calm my mind down, or to pray, find some sort of connection spiritually that is going to balance you out. Because if not, I wasn't taking care of that inner me, that warrior spirit that translated into the warrior life of my health would decline. Now the people that viewed me as like who I needed to be as a person in life was starting to struggle, like me not being a good husband. Couldn't figure out the spirit, couldn't figure out the warrior in life, and then warrior in the workplace. All that sort of, they each have their own pressures. You're going to struggle in each one of them, and if you don't learn to, or wasn't learning to balance those, to say, okay, this warrior spirit is struggling. I can pretend in life and workspace, but I truly know that I'm struggling. I need to balance it out, figure out where I need to touch base with, whether it's go off on a nice trip to the woods to find your peace, meditate, pray. I like to pray a lot. Like to me, like that's where I found like my strength in warrior spirit was, the things I was not dealing with is because I had to rationalize the moral aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And for me to not beat myself up for certain things, I would find that, and going off on a sidebar here, is that any military member, they have the struggle of when you go overseas in combat or even anywhere, that you have a lot of latitude to make some very hard decisions that may weigh on your morals. And that is what I look at warrior spirit, is how you respond and then how you manage that after the fact. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I struggled. And I went away from faith and stuff like that for a while in my career, which came back to bite me later on as I wasn't taking time to reflect and rationalize on it. And so my warrior spirit, that inside up here, was not balanced. And then finally I found a way to balance that. And that's why I say my wife has so much grace with helping me through those things.
Do you think guys can really get through transitioning, especially if they've been, 22 years in service or just a long time in it, without the help of others, like by themselves?
You can try, but one of my friends said there's a honeymoon phase. You're going to do okay maybe. But when that honeymoon phase is over, reality hits. And it's not, and that's where I go back to like the image. Like your whole career is built off this image, and then eventually you find a new image. And so you don't need to worry about that old image anymore. You need to figure out how to rebuild a new image that's going to be hard. It's the same thing when you're in buds. When you're a white shirt, you haven't earned your brown shirt yet. You're going through that again in a way. And you can pretend to try and go at it alone in buds, but you can't carry a log by yourself. You can't carry a boat by yourself. You can't do all these things by yourself. Like you can't paddle through rock portage by yourself. So you're going to need a team. And that's something that I find is very unique about that transition period of it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to like not know it all because we don't know it all. Mm-hmm. Like having that team dynamic of like feeding information because people are willing to help. They're not going to look down on you and say, oh, you're a terrible SEAL. You're a terrible person. I thought they were going to say that. Mm-hmm. But reality hit me whenever there were so many dudes who are like, no, I got you, bro. Like I've been through that. I've been there. I'm just like, I took a wrap off. I could breathe. I could do the belly breathing. I was like, oh, that's so good to hear. Like, all right, I've got questions and people have answers. And that's where I was like not asking. I was just being stubborn.
What's wild is from an outside perspective, everything that I hear with all the guys that have gone through BUD/S is one of the best in the teams is one of the best parts of all of it is suffering together with guys.
Yeah.
But then they get out and they won't suffer. They're suffering, but they're suffering alone.
Well, they go isolate. And then and a lot of us do it. They go isolate and they are like, I'm just going to deal with it. And the big thing is because they're like, I don't want to be a burden on anybody else. And I feel like I'm a burden right now. And
so that
is the biggest lie that you can tell yourself.
It's loss of community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Every day you come in, you have energy you can pull from each other. Yeah. You have ways to fill your cup in certain ways. I can go to the range. I can go and like coke with Ed here. We can joke about anything. We can give each other like, and the next thing you know, you're pulling yourself out of a funk. But when you isolate and you lose that community, now you've got your family looking at you like, well, we're here. What are we going to do? And you don't have that value, that purpose that you had before that could fill your cup. Mm-hmm. And now you're trying to figure it out. And that's where I look at, you got Maslow's hierarchy of needs of your basic needs. You kind of lose a certain aspect of your social needs and your job security. So you're starting to lose certain things that puts a lot more pressure on you. So you have all those different things that are putting pressure on you in a different way that is new. And it's something that during the transition, it's a lot more pressure than just transitioning.
Yeah.
It's not just finding a new job. It's not just finding a job. There's a lot more to it.
It's a lot deeper.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I find, what I'd love to see, hopefully it's becoming more and more common, is still suffering together outside of teams when they transition.
You can roll right into.
Yeah. Beyond the Brotherhood.
Yeah. Beyond the Brotherhood.
Yeah. So every community suffers from, the effects of trauma. And we found in the SEAL community, there's a lot of guys dying by suicide. And I had a really good friend of mine that had killed himself. And that was like a light bulb to me. I was like, we got to do something. Like, good guys are dying. I had Rob Guzzo early on in my career that killed himself. And Kyle Paulson was another one that took his own life. And, it happened more and more. And at first you didn't really think about it. But then I stopped and I thought, like, we've got to be more proactive. Like, how can we do something to help these guys out? And I found a post on LinkedIn from Jimmy May. And Jimmy was starting Beyond the Brotherhood because a good friend of his had died as well. And we connected because he said, I want to do something and build a community to where we can help get after this problem by finding a way to build a community outside of the SEAL teams that helps them transition to find purpose, to find something to help get after. There is no one size fits all. There is no perfect answer to go after this mental health problem. But you got to do something. You can't be reactive because then that's too late. And so we connected. We talked about, hey, what can we do? And he has community purpose and goals that he goes after. And community is huge. It's finding a way to build a community of guys that can help solve problems with them. And it's that continuity of being connected to somebody that, hey, if you've got questions, I've got answers. Doesn't matter what it is. And then you've got purpose, which finding a job for him. And we found Jay Harrison, who does an assessment, that it actually breaks it down very good. It's kind of like the Berkman assessment, but he goes a little bit deeper on some things and finds what he found about me was crazy, that with that assessment, you can kind of find what you would be happy doing. Not necessarily saying like, oh, you're talented in doing this. You should probably try and look at this career because at first, when you don't know, it gives you some sort of guidance to give you direction. Yeah. And what that also does is it's finding the right person in the right seat for any organization. So if you want someone that's highly motivated, you don't want to put someone in there that's going to be miserable because that highly motivated person can become toxic. But if you have this person that's going to be happy doing what they're doing and they're highly motivated, they're going to be a high performer.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we start these guys off with, putting them through that assessment, and then going through job placement we have different talent agencies like Morgan and Benjamin, and we've got a few more coming online. And so the other part of that is we bring in this network of people that you don't have in the SEAL teams. You're not out there on LinkedIn in the SEAL teams. I don't know about now, but you didn't have social media, that you're not building all these connections with people in different industries that are growing through these careers. So you're kind of lost. You don't have that base foundation. And so we're like, let's build it and be proactive in some way, shape, or form to get after the problem of this mental health crisis that we see. And it's good guys. It may not be right away. So guys may not be struggling, and they come to us. We want it because there's a lot of good guys that come to us and say, hey, I just want to give back to the community. And so you have good guys that are now forming this community that we're building something to move forward. And if guys are struggling, we get ahead of it before it becomes a problem. And that's what I said, all those different pressure points and pain points, helping people get through those things before it becomes a reactive
problem.
Yeah.
Love it.
And that's something that I love doing, the events there. I was the executive director. Now I just took over for a different company because I partnered another one of my companies with Hit the Surf, which is my team building company, to be a VP of corporate leadership. And part of what I was doing at Beyond the Brotherhood, what Jimmy does a phenomenal job, Drew does too, is we do these events where you have different organizations that want to do like a team building event that have this depth of knowledge. Remember, these warriors have been building businesses. And now they want to give back to communities, and they come together in these fundraising events that bring in SEALs that can now interact with them. And what I love to do is Jimmy does Triple S, and he does a phenomenal job with it. I did a Pit Stop Challenge where we bring a unique set of problems to where you can learn from each other in a unique environment that breaks down communication barriers. So I'm teaching SEALs, or I'm not teaching them, the pit crews at Richard Childress Racing are teaching SEALs how to pit in NASCAR, real life NASCAR. And same thing with our donors, these business owners that doing something unique. What that does is it allows them to have a cool experience, but break down barriers and learn how to problem solve from a different angle. So it's not, I'm using military jargon. They're not using corporate jargon. We're doing something unique and different to really having a cool event, breaking down barriers, finding different ways to communicate to solve problems, and they can relate to that experience.
Yeah. A lot of times that's needed, and especially in companies, they'll bring in it's something completely outside of, you almost have to step outside of, okay, this is what we've been trying to solve, step outside of it, bring in something else in an interactive experience. There was, forget his last name, Shane something, writes about, there was a hospital over in Europe that was having like 90-something% mortality rate for babies. And it was because the floor that they were on when they go in, first are admitted, there was something on that floor. So they then had to transport them down to the third floor. Well, they weren't transporting them down. Something was messing up on the transportation. So they brought in a NASCAR pit team. And that NASCAR pit team went through every person's roles of, okay, you get this wire, then you come under, and you get, and it pretty much annihilated the mortality rate for it. But such a cool type of experience.
So since I worked with NASCAR a lot, and these guys are awesome. They have the same, they're so similar to the special operations community because they're gone so much. They're high performance. They're in high stress environments. You've got the pit crews, you got the road crews, you got the spotters, you got the crew chiefs, you got everybody that's all these different positions working together and traveling so much. They're high performers, all of them. The pit crews are former D1 athletes, some NFL, some were Super Bowl champions that find another job and they're out there in the pit crews just crushing it. But they're so high performing that it's cool to see them the way that they function. And when you talked about that's the hands-on drill, figuring out every single step along the way of who has hands on something. It's like, who's responsible for this? And that's cool that they did that. They're a cool group to work with. And I started off, I was still active duty. I built 2 companies. One was Hit the Surf, where a good friend of mine that races NASCAR asked me to come in and do team building. And that's how my business started, was doing team building and leadership development. When I came in, I noticed that there was friction between the road crews and pit crews. And it's because there wasn't the understanding or recognition behind them both. You know, they were button heads.
Yeah.
And we went through a team building exercise. I drew on the board a car and I said, I want everybody to walk me through what they do. And so each person took a turn. And what I did is I said, okay, you tell me what you do here. Then he would get done explaining his job and turn around. I said, does anybody else have anything to add? And other people started validating him, seeing what else he did. So it started to form this understanding. And then it just took off from there. Like they just naturally had this ability to work together and seeing things. And that kind of helped form like some of the pit crew guys. You would think that these NASCAR guys that are athletes would know how to change like brakes out of a car, which is like second nature. These guys that build the actual NASCAR, the race car, are the road crew. You want somebody to be around a car, those are the guys. It's not the pit crew guys. Some of them may be knowledgeable, but it used to be in the old days that those road crew guys also pit the car.
Yeah.
But then they changed it and said, let's bring in these athletes to do it. And so that was still like that. It's like the old guard versus new guard mentality. And so it broke that down, and they started teaching each other. Like they had a newfound respect for each other because of the knowledge that each other had. So you learned to find value in people. And that was like one of the cool things that I loved doing it. And he talked me into, just like, hey, you should do this more often, because I was doing it already. But he's the one that really encouraged me to go and do that. And it's evolved now to where, like I just said, I partnered with the University of Health and Performance out there doing their VP of Corporate Leadership, which is actually a really, really cool facility that I'm super excited to be a part of, because I also oversee the Patriot Pathway, which is a transition program that's not just for SEALs, but it's for all veterans. It's like almost 1,000 acres. This guy, Matt Hesse, awesome vision. Like he gets it. He's got this vision of building this facility where there's a CPT where they do a lot of coaching certifications for professional trainers that they come out there. But also there's Patriot Pathways doing kind of what I talked about before, is they're building the TAP program for people to get out, but also have a way to do leadership and development for companies. So if you think about that, if you've got a TAP program that's also closely tied into leadership and development within organizations, think of like a veteran resource group in an organization that's looking to hire veterans, and then you have veterans in their TAP program looking to find jobs. So it's a beautiful facility that has Humvees, helicopters, ranges, mountain bike trails that you can find a way to navigate people into a new career and find. It just shortens the search really, and creates the leadership development that you start to understand as a leader. You know, it's hard when you take each step. You don't get, official courses. Not a lot of people do leadership development within an organization. You get hired out or hired in and go into a role. But if you come through there, you have a new opportunity to find a way to have some sort of a standardized understanding of what leadership looks like. And that's what I thought was really cool. He does so much out there, and he's got a long path that he's taking with this, but it's a really cool concept, and we partnered up. So now I'm taking all the leadership development out there to do on site, to do some really cool things with some of the very highly skilled people that he already has hired out there, which is really cool to me. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm in. Like, this is cool. I get it. Like you're building up veterans, but you're also building up leaders in a world-class facility. It's all brand new, and there's no better place to be than right there. Well, it's in Bentonville, Arkansas. I'm
That's
biased.
what I was going to ask. Yeah, it's in Arkansas.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Like the campus out there is huge.
Bentonville's Walmart, right?
Oh yeah, big time Walmart. Yeah. Everything Walmart.
That's awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been a cool ride. I'll tell you that. It's neat. I also own another company too, which has been a struggle on figuring out how to manage all my time, which is where time blocking.
Yep.
I time block everything to make sure that I am hitting all the wickets. And that was, I think, another challenge for me getting out was how to manage all my time. Because your schedule is somewhat set for you in the military. And when you get out, now you're like, oh, crap, how do I manage all this? And that was something I did with owning 2 companies and running a nonprofit. How do I manage that? And I hit the surf down for a little bit on some things because I trained a lot of law enforcement doing CQC and stuff, and I still do that. And then now I'm bridging that all into UHP to bring all the clients that I've had from different organizations doing that stuff and bringing them out there for a world-class experience at UHP, which is going to be really cool.
That's awesome.
So you're managing those two companies, and then you're doing the
Trivet, which is I have my boot here.
Yeah, oh yeah. Let's check that out.
All right, so here's a story behind this. So when I was in Afghanistan, I had a sprained left ankle, and I was running the outstation out there. And in the military, as you know, when you're out in an outstation, you don't have a specialty that can come out and do rehab on you. And so I was using these big straps trying to rehab my ankle, and I was favoring my right leg. I was probably not doing a very good job of rehabbing my ankle because when I do the little band, it was hurting. And so I'm in the mindset, if you're hurting, don't do it because your body's telling you don't. And so I went out on an operation, and I was favoring my ankle and put too much of my right hand or my right leg, and it tore my meniscus, and I did a face plant. And so I walked back, and my buddy that was helping me at the time, he pulled me and was like, "Hey, Murphy, okay? We got to get you back to the trucks." I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." And that was when it clicked on me. It was like, there's got to be something that I can do to help rehab my ankle. And this is what there's another owner of the company is an Army Ranger that I grew up with. And then there's a former Army MP that helped design this. This is our prototype, and we actually just finishing up the design for our new boot. So what it is it has a different, think of a walking boot, but now you have the ability to lock out. It can be stationary, so you can walk in it, or you can adjust the range of motion. So
once you start getting a little bit more,
so you get a little bit more range of motion, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion. Typically, these aren't on there. I'm just doing this on here to show you the different exercises you can do. And so you can adjust a different range of motion. So as the rehab specialist, like, you can do dorsiflexion 20 degrees or plantar flexion 10 degrees. So you get a little bit of range of motion back. And then you can also have it free range, which I have it right now, so you have the full range of motion. And what that does for you is it allows you to do strength and conditioning, preventive maintenance, and rehab. So these bands provide resistance for both. When you go to press down, which is, we call it the gas pedal, it's really plantar flexion.
Yep.
So it's working your calf muscles. But the big thing that I like is the back strap here, which is the dorsiflexion, which is you bring your toe up. Think about going through budge. Do you remember how many times you got shin splints? That's working that shin muscle. Yeah. Like all the pain that you're going through, it's working that and stretching it out. So you can do active stretching and passive stretching to where as you're working your ankle, it's these hinges are stabilizing it so you're not flopping one way or the other.
But you're also rehabbing it at the same time.
Yeah, you're doing it in a controlled manner.
Yeah.
And we just partnered with University of Arkansas, their medical school there, and they've got their hands on it. And it was really cool to watch people much smarter than myself take a look at this and see the value in it of being able to adjust the range of motion, walk in it, also use it for rehab and physical therapy. And then this top part can come off as well to where there's a handle, and you can also do another attachment on the bottom. But you can have a handle, so as you got your foot in here, you can do it from side to side. It's called inversion and eversion, that you can adjust any angle. So you're hitting all the muscles and rehabbing yourself. And if you think of if you've ever been in a walking boot, it turns to trash afterwards. But this could be a walking boot, and then you have it for rehab.
Yeah.
So think of for the weekend warriors that don't want to go out and go. I look at it as a lot of people like to take care of themselves. They don't want to go in and
they don't want to do the physical therapy or drive wherever to.
And that's kind of how I love this thing, was being out there in Afghanistan. I don't want to be pulled off the battlefield and waste the time and money that the military spent on me to be ready for combat. If I would have had this, I could have stayed ready. But instead, I tore the meniscus in my knee, had to hobble through the rest of my deployment, come back and do surgery, all because I didn't have the resources, because I couldn't fly a specialist out there. In a combat zone, I mean, you probably could, but at the same time, you don't have the level of care. We don't, and I'm not saying that everybody's like this, but you could walk me through one thing as a specialist, but eventually I'm just probably going to screw it up because I'm not a rehab therapist. I'm getting frustrated with the band because it kept rolling off my foot or something. I'm just going to toss it to the side and not take care of myself. And so we wanted to find a way to give back to the warfighter to keep them on the battlefield longer. And then we discovered that we're not the only ones that think that way. Everybody wants to take care of themselves. And athletes, like the basketball team, first thing that the doctor said at the UAMS that we were in there with, he's like, I wish I had these for my basketball players because they're always rolling their ankles. They have some sort of injury. And we've had other people look at it, and we're excited to see the data that comes back because right now the doctor's looking at it, and they hooked up Chris, my buddy, to these electrodes, and we're going to find out just what muscles are firing, and it's hard to target a lot of those things.
Oh, nice.
So we built this. We're building this company. It's brand new.
Iron Man boot.
Iron Man boot right now, yeah. It's called the Strength Boot.
Give me 30% flexion.
Well, that's exactly what I am building an app. That's one thing that I've learned how to do is like how to build an app outside of the military because I got to catch up with the times and figure out how to put in an app the exercises that you're doing and then connect it to physical therapists so that a patient and a physical therapist, but also just a direct-to-consumer user can find programs that they can use this thing to be at home and have progress. Figure out, okay, I want to strengthen these muscles because I've got some sort of instability in my ankle, whether it's from an old injury or one that I want to strengthen because I don't want to get an injury. So now they can have the app to walk
that's
them
awesome.
through.
And what is it? What did you say the business name was again?
Trivet.
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 Okay.
So just trivetllc.com.
Nice.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah, that was an invention that I like I said, building businesses, I've learned so much on the outside of how much work it is. And it takes a lot. There's not just one perfect answer. You got to learn to believe in something. And that's something that I'm about to show the updated version. That was like our prototype. And now that we have like engineers like designing it to look really cool and sleek, it's going to be really, really awesome.
That's awesome.
Going through all those iterations of all those things, it's been a journey that I'm so glad that I got to learn and grow on the outside because that's helped me like manage finding purpose because I'm still learning and growing on the outside. And that was one of the cool things that we're trying to take to market and put into people's lives to make them better.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, to me, it sounds like it didn't take you long to find your purpose. Yeah. And I think it's like the purpose, just hearing you, like the purpose that you have is almost the same purpose you had when you were in, man. It's about helping others, serving others. And I mean, that's really what life's about in general.
Absolutely.
But yeah, dude, it's really cool, man, to see all the things that you're doing. For Beyond the Brotherhood, if guys are listening to this or they do, how do they reach out? And
so just go to beyondthebrotherhood.org. We have Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Myself or Jimmy May is on there. Like you can go to the website, and that's the easiest way to find us. And
then you have the Hit the Surf where you're training law enforcement, and then you're also doing mentoring, coaching, and stuff like that through there.
So for Hit the Surf, there's all the social medias like at Hit the Surf. And then University of Health and Performance, that's where I'm bringing in the leadership and team building because they've got a whole team there with the facility. And then for Trivet, trivetllc.com.
Okay. So we'll put all the links below once the podcast comes out so people can hit those if they're interested in checking them out for sure.
Cool. That'd be great.
Dude, I appreciate you, man.
We also got a gift for you.
That's right.
Oh. Yeah. It's our first time. We're going to start.
Can I carry it on an airplane because...
Yeah, I think I've carried it on before.
Okay.
They might pull it out and check it out, but it's you'll see what it is.
I'm going to bring both of these over there. I don't know. You know these.
So this is one of my buddies. He owns this company. He's now a sponsor on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
It's the coolest packaging.
Yeah. So it's a guy that I trained, Alex, from one of the courses, and then we became good buddies. And he's just a real smart businessman, and he wanted to make.
Just the labeling makes me think that TSA is going to have a fit.
I traveled. They'll pull it out, and then once they find out what it is, so basically it's hot salt.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if you're into like hot, spicy.
Oh yeah. So
things.
we're building a garden right now. It's garden season, so we're getting cayenne pepper and all that stuff. So
this is dope.
Yeah. So he has different flavors of salt. He infuses them with like all sorts of like habanero peppers and whatever else. So there's levels to them too. So there's some hot, medium, mild. But they're awesome, man. I mean, I'm addicted to this stuff. I put it on everything. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Should I try it out right now?
Yeah,
Snort
go ahead,
it, please.
Put some on, yeah.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah.
What level is this?
That one.
Ooh, it's got some good kick to it.
Yeah.
Does that one say?
That one's Three Kings. That one's pretty hot. I mean, it's not like the hottest. This one right here, Apocalypto, that one is a little much.
Yeah, probably not something I should do right now in case I
yeah, that one burn a little bit. I like to put that one on every once in a while if I'm feeling spicy. But yeah, I mean, people put that in their coffee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they do all sorts of stuff with it.
Man, thank you. This is going to be great. I'm going to be honest. Like I'm the type of person that when something's hot, instead of stop eating it, I keep eating it for some reason.
Yeah, just start dripping in
so
sweat.
I might go through this pretty quick.
We'll try some out here when we get back to the house too.
Okay.
We got some food waiting for us. So
cool.
Yeah.
But no, man, dude, I appreciate you coming all the way out here to be on the podcast. It was, dude, awesome seeing you, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you for having me.
I think I was telling Dave or somebody, I was like, dude, we haven't seen each other in 20-something years.
Yeah.
Even though we went through Hell Week together. But that's the teams as well.
Oh, yeah. That's where I got my my haircut was at Bud's, and it just never grew back in.
Oh, believe me, I'm thinning up right there, yeah. And I'm blaming that on
that picture you sent me. I still have the same dad bod. It's funny, I had a dad bod in Bud's.
Well, that's also the big misconception is people think like, SEALs all look, jacked and chiseled. It's like, dude, if you're going through Bud's, they look exactly like we did.
Yeah.
Like scrawny or just beat up, but no quit attitude.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. All right. Out.